Let us pray. Almighty God, where you have called us to govern this province, we ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and that will promote the interest of the people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat u gedurende ons vergaderings ons die nodige wysheid sal gee en ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat u ons sal help om al ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan u op te dra. Sikalela ilezwe letu na bantu balu, umusile ukulungo kwepondo letu. Nkosi sikalela iAfrika, tina abantwana bayo, kokela inkokeli zayo, yeniki uxolo iAfrika. All this we beg in your holy name. Amen. Please be seated. Order. Before we proceed, honourable members, I would like to remind members about some of the logistical arrangements. As has been our practice to date, honourable members will be participating in the sitting of the House, both from here in the chamber with the presiding officer and table staff and via Microsoft Teams. Our standing rules have accordingly been amended to accommodate such hybrid sittings of the House. Honourable members experiencing challenges in connecting to the sitting are requested to contact the WCPP ICT colleagues who will assist to resolve the connectivity challenges. Honourable members, the quorum requirements for the sitting of the House are provided for in the Constitution and the standing rules. Unless there's an indication of unanimous concurrence, voting will be confined to members present in the House and on the hybrid system who are entitled to cast their votes, as per the ATC issued on the 11th of August 2020. Members present in the chamber and via Microsoft Teams have all the privileges and immunities imparted by law. Members who are considered out of order by the presiding officer will have their microphones muted and called to order. Honourable members, the Sergeant at Arms will record the members' attendance. In instances where directives do not cover a particular eventuality, honourable members, the standing rules must apply. And in instances where these rules cannot be applied, the ruling by the presiding officer is final. Members, all microphones have been muted. However, for those honourable members participating in the sitting of the House via Microsoft Teams, you are requested to use the raise hand functionality of the system when you desire to raise a point of order, and I will recognise you. When an honourable member in the House wishes to raise a point of order, such an honourable member may address the presiding officer as expected, but must mute their microphones when they have completed speaking. Honourable members, the media have also been granted access to the Microsoft Teams meeting as guests of the WCPP. However, I wish to remind members of the press that they may not use the chat room or speak or activate their cameras while the sitting is in progress. If an individual member who is not a member of the House activates their microphone and video camera, such an individual member will be exited from the sitting immediately. I also wish to request that all those members in the gallery who are not members of the House to please observe the decorum of the House. Honourable members, for this sitting, language translation services are available in the chamber as usual and on Microsoft Teams via the respective channels. Honourable members, I wish to remind you that no interjections are permitted during these hybrid sittings, and to this end, I wish to draw your attention to Rule 40 of our standing rules. Honourable members, welcome to the sitting today. It is indeed a great honor and a privilege for me to welcome the delegation in the gallery from Ethiopia. Welcome and enjoy the sitting. We are welcome. Honourable members, with that being said, the Secretary will read the first order of the day.
Consideration of the principle of the Western Cape Adjustments Appropriation Bill B7 2023.
Thank you, Honourable. Thank you, Secretary. I recognise the Honourable Minister of Finance and Economic Opportunities, Minister Wenger.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, Honourable Premier, Cabinet colleagues, members of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, special guests, people of the Western Cape. Let me start by recognising the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, our support for victims of gender-based violence, our efforts to end the cycle of violence through support to victims, as well as support to perpetrators, to end the cycle of violence and to prevent violence against women and girls. Speaker, it was renowned French writer Antoine de Saint-Exupéry who said that a goal without a plan is just a wish. And right now, South Africans don't need more wishes or false promises of a better tomorrow, because we are living with the stark reality and consequences of failed service delivery and infrastructure collapse today, thanks to years of ANC mismanagement, corruption, and neglect. The economic outlook for South Africa is quite simply bleak. Rolling stage 6 blackouts are back and severely hampering economic growth. Our national infrastructure and therefore economy is buckling. Our ports are barely functioning and costing the economy billions of rands and hundreds of thousands of jobs. Our road networks are clogged, making it that much harder for our retail, manufacturing, and agricultural lifelines to reach export markets. And inflexible labor laws, restrictive national procurement, and cumbersome supplier regulations all combine to choke growth while opportunities slip past and ships sail past. These constraints are hampering the outlook for the Western Cape, and the province is expected to expand by 0.9% in 2023 and 1.5% in 2024. The country's slow economic growth recovery, from the COVID-19 pandemic is not helped by weekly revelations and allegations of ANC government-led corruption and mismanagement by the very people elected to safeguard the lives and livelihoods of millions of South Africans in one of the most unequal societies with the world's highest unemployment rate and with the skyrocketing cost of living. And this weekend's announcement of a support package for Transnet and a guarantee from National Treasury in the context of national budget planning collapse will sow the seeds for future problems if we don't see immediate results, and is emblematic of how deep our problems run. We can only make serious and sustainable inroads into a growing economy in which businesses are welcomed and supported to responsibly establish and create jobs, with a commitment to good, clean governance and driven towards a clear and planned outcome in a professional environment where sound plans are developed and implemented and poorly performing entities are not bailed out year after year, while the poor continue to suffer and bear the brunt of politically expedient but fiscally impossible decisions. Speaker, in this province, our goal of R1 trillion, jobs-rich, inclusive, sustainable, diverse, and thriving provincial economy that is growing at between 4% and 6% per year in real terms by 2035 is more than just a wish or a hope. We are focused on achieving this goal because it has the potential to create over 600,000 jobs through meticulous planning and expert execution, because we know that with those jobs comes dignity, comes hope, and the promise of a better future for every single person in this province, most especially for the poor and the vulnerable. And we are taking determined steps towards a thriving economy every day in a planned and certain way. As I shared last Thursday, we are seeing the signs of progress and indications that this work is going in the right direction. According to the most recent quarterly labour force survey in the Western Cape, we created more than 300,000 new jobs between Q3 of 2022 and Q3 of this year, which is more than any other province. We also have the lowest unemployment rate, the lowest expanded unemployment rate, the highest absorption rate, and the highest labour force participation rate in South Africa. Speaker, our people are working, our province is working, and as a government, we are working. We are planning and we are preparing to do much more, especially for those who matter most, and especially our children, the sick, the elderly, and the poorest of the poor. We can only do this through stable and predictable allocations of revenue that the Constitution requires. But as we now know, this is not what happened in here. Right now, as a province, we are all facing truly devastating budget cuts because of the unfunded national wage deal that will crowd out provincial funding and significantly limit the ability of this government to deliver vital basic services to a growing population. Nothing more plainly demonstrates the consequences of kicking a can down the road with nothing but a wish for a solution than the public sector wage deal. I announced last week that the Western Cape government, led by the Premier, myself and all of our colleagues in the Cabinet, are tackling this fight head on. We have declared a formal intergovernmental dispute with the national government to make sure, not just by wishing or hoping, that the people of this province get every single cent that they deserve. Provincial governments are the people-intensive sphere of government. We rely on our nurses, teachers, social workers to deliver basic services to millions of citizens every day, and with a growing population, to respond to overwhelming pressure on our services. Similarly, any shift of funding away from infrastructure will have a devastating effect on basic service delivery, the construction industry, and economic growth and job creation. And through this action now, we are trying to avoid dramatic reductions in that money and consequently service delivery spending in order to cater for the wage liability. Reductions that will have a a devastating impact on the ability of province to deliver vital well-being and safety services and create many more jobs that South Africa needs for hope and prosperity for all. The national government concluded the wage deal after our budgets for the year were planned for, set, and passed. The outcome of the wage deal and increases were unilaterally and centrally implemented on the payroll system. So all provinces automatically started incurring this expenditure with no certainty on how this will be funded. It is worth reiterating that this expenditure was additional to the past provincial budget, which means
Order,
it
members.
is unbudgeted liability imposed on us, and it is growing every month. We were forced to proceed on trust that funding support will be received from the National Fiscus. And now, in the middle of the financial year, far past even the 11th hour, national government has only committed to funding 78% of the health and education wage liability only. And we've been left to carry the can with a significant 1.1 billion rand shortfall. It is our view and has always been our position that the wage liability should be fully funded through allocations to provinces by those who negotiated and concluded the wage deal, the national government. Wage negotiations by their very nature will always mainly affect provinces, as the majority of civil servants are employed by provinces. This is because of our constitutional mandates of health
Order.
and education.
Honourable Minister, please take your seat. Honourable Chief Whip, is that a point of order?
Speaker, I rise on Rule 39. I believe this is a political debate, but we are governed by rules in this House. No loud conversion is allowed. Can you please rule, Speaker?
Thank you very much, honourable members. I'm listening very carefully. Honourable members, I'm on the floor. Honourable members, I'm going to ask your indulgence. It is a political debate, so I'm going to allow a bit of latitude, but please do not drown out the speaker and allow the person that's on the floor to have an opportunity to make his or her contribution. Thank you very much, Honourable Chief Whip. Honourable Minister, my apologies. You may continue.
This is because of our constitutional mandates of health and education and social development, which are all human resource intensive. This is where, as a government, we connect with the people of our province through our doctors, our nurses, our teachers, and our social workers. The Western Cape government is committed to effective and sustainable management of the overall public service wage bill. But I formally raised concerns about the funding of the 2023 wage agreement, particularly in the short term, as far back as April of this year. Both the Premier and myself have raised these issues repeatedly with the national government and the presidency over months, reiterating our objections to foisting the consequences of the wage deal onto provinces with nothing but a wish that this problem will take care of itself. Speaker, this is just not how problem solving and responsible fiscal planning works. In the Western Cape, we will continue with our established practice of exercising absolute prudence around compensation of employees so that we can limit the impact on our residents both financially and for better service delivery. Our compensation of employees as a percentage of our budget amounts to approximately 52% of our expenditure. This is the lowest across all provinces and has resulted in the lowest average unit cost in both the national and provincial spheres of government. It is the result of our sustained enforcement of compensation ceilings and an emphasis on headcount management. But should there be no resolution to the issue, we will face an immediate impact on frontline service delivery and a risk to our constitutional responsibilities, as the Western Cape has little to no room to cover any funding shortfalls thrown to provinces to cover in year without adequate funding from the national government. The prioritisation of service delivery for the people who matter is a non-negotiable for this government. We don't just wish for a better future for our people. We go out there with a plan to secure that future for our people, for safer, better lives with more jobs for the poorest of the poor and the most vulnerable in our society. It is also worth mentioning that our service delivery partners that we rely on to help deliver those vital services are also at breaking point. and there's no scope to significantly reduce transfer payments to them. We can't divert funding away from maternal, child and infant health care, antenatal care, tuberculosis treatment and basic medical care. We also can't significantly reduce transfers to non-profit institutions for community-based care that provide mental health services, chronic care and tuberculosis and HIV/AIDS adherence support. And within the social development sector, our NPOs, our non-profit organizations, cannot absorb any more cuts as they bolster the provision of essential services to the province's most vulnerable residents. It also means that critical and targeted infrastructure investments, like the rapid school build for more schools and classrooms for our children to learn, are severely compromised. And so, through a Herculean effort to avoid these unconscionable impacts on service delivery, we have engaged extensively with the national government to avoid the situation with no real relief. And for this reason, we have taken the difficult but necessary step of declaring an intergovernmental dispute. Our message is clear: fund the wage liability in year. Give us the 1.1 billion rand shortfall that is owed to the people of our province, or we will take this to the courts. Speaker, the impact of the floods in May and June and September of this year on infrastructure across the province has been plain to see. It has also been plain to see the difference that decisive leadership in a clear, achievable plan makes, with key roads connecting communities to jobs and our economy being opened in record time, like the vital N2, and I commend Minister Simmers and Bredell in their determination to deliver real results through real action, not just a wish. Initial costing from the Department of Infrastructure and Agriculture brings the cost for the damage across the province to 845 million rand and 500 million rand respectively. The Western Cape government has not and will not receive funding this year from the National Disaster Management Centre, as their funds set aside specifically to respond to disasters are depleted. And so the adjustment budget draws down 193 million rand from the unforeseen and unavoidable reserve for flood damage, which includes 150 million rand in 24-25 for roads infrastructure and another 43 million rand for repairs to agriculture infrastructure damaged by the floods, while we manage longer-term repairs and the allocation of funding from the resources that are meant to be available from the National Disaster Management Centre for such eventualities. And when we build, Speaker, we build better. And after this year's flooding disasters, we are building back even better so that we can weather the impacts of climate change with more resilience to better serve and connect our communities and economy for sustainable growth and more jobs. The importance of certain and sustainable allocations cannot be overemphasized, and the value of stable and predictable budgeting, and especially the impact of this year's unstable, unreliable, and short-term pay-as-you-go budgeting is felt and seen most acutely in the Department of Infrastructure and the myriad infrastructure projects being pursued across the government, especially in health and education. As a province, we are prioritizing sustainable and achievable maintenance of our infrastructure and assets so that we can do more with less for longer. We are also ensuring that we can commit to the projects we plan for so that the businesses and people that rely on government infrastructure for their jobs and livelihoods can do so with the certainty that what the Western Cape promises, the Western Cape delivers. But as I made clear at the outset, this cannot be done in our fiscal context, and the impact of the wage deal will and is crowding out funding for critical service delivery, especially in infrastructure. The total 23-24 adjustment to infrastructure investment is therefore a reduction of 822.8 million rand of the main appropriation of 11.7 billion rand. The largest adjustment occurred in the Department of Infrastructure, where the appropriation was decreased by 372 million rand from the main appropriation to the adjusted appropriation, followed by education and health and wellness, with a reduction of 248 million rand and 136.4 million rand respectively. A huge chunk of the decreases for infrastructure are due to cuts to national conditional grants in the amount of 323.8 million rand, which is made up of 51.7 million rand reduction in the provincial road maintenance grant, a 214.3 million rand reduction in the human settlements development grant, a 57.2 million rand reduction in the informal settlements upgrading partnerships grant, and a 650,000 rand reduction in the expanded public works program integrated grant for provinces. Offsetting the decrease in the budget are reprioritizations made in maintenance and repairs by 568.4 million rand and upgrades and additions by 49.12 million rand. Spending on agriculture infrastructure has been reduced through a 19.5 million rand reduction, comprising of 1 million rand reduction on the earmarked allocation towards the ecological infrastructure project and a 18.5 million rand reduction on the earmarked allocation towards the river protection works along the Keerboom River, Yandertoys River and Upper Hex River. The earmarked allocations remaining for river protection works at 18.5 million will be used for their intended purpose in the 24-25 financial year. Our catalytic infrastructure priorities have also been reduced, and a total of 36 million rand has been cut from our ability to further grow jobs. But the priority of an energy resilient and thriving economy that grows towards a future that is free from the chokehold of load shedding remains a key focus. But the reality is that we are now forced to do so more progressively within the deeply constrained fiscal environment as a consequence of the unfunded wage deal. Speaker, before my colleagues share the impact of the devastating and unprecedented in-year cuts on their well-laid plans for this province's well-being, safety and jobs, allow me to share more gentle wisdom on the difference between mere wishes and successful plans. It takes as much energy to wish as it does to plan. Eleanor Roosevelt knew the importance of taking intentional action towards an outcome and not just proclaiming a passive desire for an outcome. And today, this government knows what those planned outcomes can and should be. A growing province with a jobs-rich, thriving, resilient and diverse economy and a safe and healthy future for every family in this province. We cannot do it alone, and we can only do it with budget certainty, a laser-focused plan and a sound basis of good, clean governance that you can rely on. In the Western Cape, we are fighting for that certainty and what the people of this province are lawfully entitled to, so that we can grow the economy, we can grow jobs, and grow hope for every single resident. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I recognize the Honourable Nkondlo.
Mandizibulisele kuwe Somlomo, ndibulise kumntu wonke okhoyo kule ndlu yowiso-mthetho yaseNtshona Koloni, ndibulise kuzo zonke abantu abasihambeleyo namhlanje kule ndlu yowiso-mthetho. Ndifune ukutsho Somlomo ukuthi during these 16 days of activism, let me also join to recognize those men and women in our country who fight side by side against gender-based violence and femicide. Actually, the biggest predicament that this generation of politicians that we are sitting with is actually whether they would in any way contribute to the elimination of gender-based violence and femicide in our lifetime. And I'm saying this also recognizing Somlomo that at NY28 in Gugulethu, over the past few days, a young woman was shot dead with her son. And I'm asking once again the Premier and this provincial government and department that those lives are too many of women and children in this province, especially in the Cape Flats, because this has become a reality from the apartheid days up until 30 years into democracy, even with almost 15 years of the DA rule, that this particular problem does not seem to be removed. And we ask, where is the safety plan? It's a safety plan for who? When our young women continue to be dealing with such a problem. The ANC rejects this adjustment appropriations budget bill, Somlom. Now, nearly 2 months ago, Oxfam International, ahead of the annual meetings of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, released a research of their own, which amongst others stated, I quote, more than half, 57% of the world's poorest countries, home to over 2.4 billion people, are having to cut public spending by a combined 229 billion US dollars over the next 5 years, close quote. The research goes on to state that, and again, quote, on current terms, low and lower middle income countries will be forced to pay nearly $500 million every day in interest and debt repayments between now and 2029. Entire countries are facing bankruptcy, with the poorest countries now spending 4 times more repaying debts to rich creditors than on healthcare, close quote. For their part, the Initiative for Policy Dialogue, based at Columbia University in the United States, released a working paper titled End Austerity, a global report on budget cuts and harmful social reforms in 2022. It says, again, among others, the working paper highlighted the dangers of a post-pandemic austerity shock, which is far more premature and severe than the one that followed the global financial crisis, because this is not the first time that we're here as a country, but also as a people of the globe. The working paper goes on to state that, and I quote, instead of harmful austerity measures or fiscal consolidation, as we say, governments must urgently identify alternative financing options to support their populations that are coping with multiple and compounding crises, from health, energy, finance, and climate shocks to unaffordable living costs, close quote. The report goes on to present, firstly, the instances of 189 countries identified by the IMF where up to 2025 budget cuts will take place. Secondly, the working paper reviews the latest 267 IMF country reports to identify the main austerity measures being considered by treasuries and the IMF in each country. And finally, the report presents alternative financing options, ultimately calling on countries to end austerity by creating a fiscal space to finance people's recovery and progress towards human rights and the sustainable development goals. We mention all of this, Speaker, because these articles will make good reading for the members in this House, particularly on the other side. While the ANC acknowledges that austerity measures are viewed as useful to curb hyperinflation and a balancing act towards dealing with debt, such must never be presented as a silver bullet, especially to South Africa as a developing economy with its structural problems of a racialized market economy and underdevelopment of a huge majority. We have been here before. And indeed, as we listen to the report or we read the report of the IMF Premier, one still is asking where exactly is, as we conclude this administration, where is the fiscal futures? Because part of the expectation of the fiscal futures indeed was to try and augment some of the public financing models so that you start considering the data and the evidence that we always speak about, data that we receive in the past municipal economic review outlook, in the provincial economic review outlook, that speak about the persistent structural problems. Because even if you were to lament and politic about the issues of corruption, the issues that we see to date amongst public service in terms of how we are mismanaging some of the decisions that we make as policymakers, the truth and the evidence is here and speaking for itself. It speaks for itself as we talk about unemployment. And I want to follow suit to date and actually learn from Honorable Mayor, who always shares these books here. On page 19 of this book, if you all see it, it's called Medium-Term Budget Policy Statement of this provincial government. Youth unemployment rate per population group in the Western Cape in third quarter 2018 to the third quarter of 2023. I must say the total youth unemployment is 27.5%, Minister, as you said in the report, and 37.3% is African, and colored at 23.1%. And this is a question we kept on asking you, MEC Wenger, together with your team, is how is the growth for jobs responding to this particular peculiarity, particularly because this peculiarity also in this book, it explains that those that are struggling to get employment are those with less than a matric qualification. And indeed, we see from the education department that this Western Cape, amongst others, is no longer performing in as far as matric performance, particularly from these communities, Africans in particular, and coloureds, you know, if you consider the results in the education system. Further than that, we raised, amongst others, the issue of crime. Once again, MEC Allen, we asked the question around extortion, protection fees that are actually a challenge and a nightmare for township enterprises. And we must say here in this house, and this is an answer, that there is no response from the safety plan around township entrepreneurs. So they must fend for themselves. They are struggling daily to deal with the realities of extortion. So if you talk about budget for future, whose future are you planning for, MEC Wenger? Again, as we talk about the informal employment, actually, we ask many a times, where is this G4J strategy responding to informal employment? And I must say, hasten again to raise another book. As you see, Municipal Economic Review and Outlook of the Cape Metro, it indicates in page 24 that from spaza shop owners in the Cape Metro to the hairdresser operating from a Beaufort West in the Central Karoo, the informal sector is pivotal in generating employment opportunities in the province. It was you sitting on the other side, even last year, indicating to us that indeed you are recognizing that informal sector has actually recorded positive growth last year, but you keep on being deaf in responding to this informal sector. When we ask what is the strategy of ensuring that a lot of informal traders that are harassed by your friends, JP Smith amongst others, who you donated Premier 1 billion rand for him to buy his toys so that he can harass most of our black informal traders who are trading, and all they are trying to do is to make a living for themselves so that they do not depend on your government. But all what you do to them, your response is to harass them. And we say this because, again, this government, you were very quick to speak through your city of Cape Town to speak to Google to remove Nyanga because one tourist from Europe was marked in Nyanga, and you were quick to respond to tourism safety and put money in the adjustment when there was some problems in Table Mountain. You were quick to do the same in rural safety when there were problems of farmers. But once again, every time, every year, every day, as we speak, there are many black entrepreneurs who are actually extorted in our townships, and we keep on raising that, and that not even one single day that you have taken any money aside in your budget adjustment and actually increase any intervention in the townships. And this is you, the writing is on the wall. And we say part of what you say about your fiscal consolidation, you speak about flexible labor regulation. What this means is a free pass to yourselves and your friends, corporates who you want to have the right to hire and fire. And we must tell you, as you did, we must tell you that the rights of workers and the rights of workers of the world are not going to be dismissed by you and your corporates that actually bully and are abusive to workers. That it is the right of workers as they contribute to these corporates and they put their sweat, the meagre salaries and no protective conditions that you would want to see with many of those that, once again, you were mum and silent when most of them here in the Western Cape were found to have actually withdrawn the UIF, the unemployment insurance funds during COVID, from the fund, but did not pay the workers. Some of them did not even register workers. They keep on exploiting. And when we
Order.
asked you, who keep on saying you engage with private sector here, you said that is not your responsibility. So you know only responsibilities that are in proximity to your political agenda.
Honourable
And we are here
Nkondlo.
and we are seeing you, and we shall.
Honourable Nkondlo, my apologies. Please take your seat. Honourable Dagmore, is that a point of order?
Yes, Chair, my point of order is, Speaker, my point of order is similar to that raised by the Honourable Chief Whip of the majority party, that I want to ask, because what Member Norman Nkondlo is saying is hitting the DA so hard that they feel embarrassed,
Honourable Dagmore.
that they are
Honourable
making
Dagmore.
a noise.
Honourable
because the
Dagmore.
truth hurts. So I want to really appeal to just listen to the speech.
Thank
Can they
you.
just listen?
Honourable,
Can they listen to the truth?
Honourable Dagmore, please take your seat. Honourable Dagmore, that is not a point of order. Honourable members, I'm appealing to you again. Honourable Van Vogel, you're done. Honourable members, there was a point of order that is not a point of order. Honourable Nkondlo, my apologies for you interrupting you. You may continue.
Nkosi Somlomo. Let me continue, Honorable Speaker. I've got the right to speak here, and I'm not asking any favor from anybody. Further to this,
Members,
this is the same provincial government who continue to actually promote corporate abuse in this particular province of ours. We see this with the displacement of nationals by illegal
Honourable
migrants
Nkondlo,
in
your time has
agriculture
expired. Please conclude.
and hospitality, to name a few. Let me say,
Order,
this
members.
week, my colleagues will go into the details of the
members.
reallocation of critical funds to programs that should not be prioritized. The ANC cannot support this budget because it is anti-workers and exposes the hypocrisy.
Thank you,
of the
Honourable
DA.
Nkondlo.
We
Your
decline
time is up.
support to the budget.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, honourable members. I recognize order, members. Before I recognize the next member, can I have some order? Thank you very much. Honourable Murray.
Honourable Speaker, as we engage in the second reading debate, our focus turns sharply to the pressing challenges of job creation and addressing unemployment in our province. In a climate marked by economic difficulty and questionable decisions at the national level, these challenges and finding solutions remain top of mind. Our debate today must go beyond rhetoric and address the very fabric of our province's future. I begin by recognizing the stellar efforts of the DA-led Western Cape government as demonstrated by the Provincial Minister of Finance, Ray Winger, in her speech on the Mero. The speech highlighted the promise of a thriving economy, our municipal building blocks for growth. We've seen encouraging signs in our economic growth and resilience, with our municipalities serving as vital building blocks for our economy. 4 out of the Western Cape's 6 regions have unemployment rates under 20%, with Cape Winelands and the Overberg region having rates below 15%. Speaker, this is compared to 32.6% nationally. The Western Cape is punching far above its weight. However, we must recognize that we cannot achieve sustainable growth in isolation. We are unfortunately confronted by the spectre of budget cuts, a shadow cast upon us by an ANC-led national government. These reductions in budget allocations to provinces have far-reaching implications, and they demand our urgent attention. In an era when we should be fostering growth and job creation, the ANC-led national government has chosen a different path. As a result of agreeing to a public wage increase the country cannot afford, they have chosen to reduce budgets in real terms, limiting our capacity to drive economic development effectively. They have passed the buck to provinces by not fully funding the centrally agreed increase, forcing them to take difficult decisions regarding frontline services. The financial mishandling of the ANC itself paints a dismal picture of their fiscal responsibility. Despite receiving 1.9 billion rand in donations and fundraising, the ANC is facing a severe cash crunch, having lost about 244 million rand between 2018 and last year. This financial mismanagement is exemplified. It is exemplified, Speaker, by the million rand debt to Uzulweni Investments for unpaid election material. The situation not only questions their ability to manage their own affairs, but that of the entire national government. Speaker, this is the same party that has the nerve not to support our provincial budget, and it is the same party that has the nerve to pretend that it advocates for the rights and interests of the worker. The DA-led Western Cape government has proactively decided to shield health, education, and social development from the bulk of budget cuts. This is especially concerning, and it should be especially concerning to all of us, because we are currently in 16 days of activism. And if we have to shield health, education, and social development, Speaker, those are the departments protecting our women, and they are also protecting our children. It is a direct result of the ANC's fiscal irresponsibility and begs the question, are they truly committed to the well-being of our people? The
Order,
people
members.
of the Western Cape deserve better.
Honorable
They
Murray,
deserve.
please take your seat. Honorable Side, is that a point of order? It's your point of order, please rise.
Point of order.
Order, members,
Honourable
there's a member on the floor.
Speaker,
Order,
is
members.
That the Honourable Murray is reading the speech. Can she lift the words off the page, please? Thank you.
Honorable Side, that is a point of order. Honorable members, there's also been convention in this house, and let's not be frivolous with these points of orders. I'm not disputing that is in the rules. But please don't interject for the sake of interjecting. Honorable Murray, you may continue. Honorable Dugmore.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I'd like to just address you on your ruling. As much as it may have become a convention, it is still a rule of this House that you may not read your speech. Now, in delivering her speech, Member Murray is not even looking up. So surely the convention is that you should at least look up once or twice and not only read the speech.
Thank you very much. I've made a ruling. Honorable Murray, you may continue. Honorable members, we have a long day ahead of us. Honorable Murray, please, you may continue. Honorable Murray, you may continue.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the people of the Western Cape deserve better, and they deserve better than frivolous points of order too. They deserve a government that invests in their future, a government that prioritizes jobs, economic development, tourism, and agriculture, the very sectors that are the lifeblood of our province. The ANC-led national government's cuts threaten our ability to support businesses and entrepreneurs. The Department of Economic Development has therefore seen its budget reduced by almost 30 million rand. The cuts are a result of the necessity of consolidating funds to make sure that our residents have healthcare and our children have access to quality education. This is a time when we should be supporting and encouraging innovation, providing incentives for job creation, and supporting economic growth. Yet we find our hands tied, unable to realize the potential of our economic development programs. Our province's tourism sector is a jewel in our economic crown. It drives growth, creates businesses, and showcases the beauty of the Western Cape to the entire world. But the budget cuts, coupled with the challenges posed by the global pandemic, put the sector at risk. It's disheartening to see that we should be investing in this recovery and expansion and yet not be able to. Our agricultural sector is also renowned for its quality and contribution to our economy. It's a sector that holds vast potential for job creation, not to mention its role in ensuring food security. Yet budget cuts undermine our ability to invest in modernizing agriculture, improving resilience, and promoting sustainable practices. The Department of Agriculture has seen its budget cut by almost 7 million rand. much of that due to cuts to conditional grant funding from the national government. Grants that are supposed to be used to support industry, farm workers, and emerging farmers have all seen substantial cuts. This includes cuts to the Comprehensive Agricultural Support Program, the Land Care Development, and the Extended Public Works Program. National government has also seen fit to allocate no disaster funding for the intense flooding and saw agricultural infrastructure in the province decimated, despite a provincial disaster being declared. This is especially concerning in the face of intensifying effects of climate change, which will see more regular occurrences of natural disaster. But Speaker, let's not forget about the informal economy, a sector that plays a vital role in providing livelihoods for many. It's a sector that requires support, recognition, and investment, not further financial constraints. This government has done an outstanding job in supporting this sector through programs like the Red Tape Reduction Unit and their work with municipalities on business-friendly bylaws, making it easier for entrepreneurs to sell their goods and contribute to the economy. I would urge our members of parliament from the opposition to kindly look at the G4J, which spells this out quite clearly. These are the programs that make positive differences in the lives of our family and our people. The reality is that these things cost money. Budget cuts will limit our ability to deliver and expand services effectively. Speaker, considering these challenges in our province, we must redouble our efforts and make the most of the resources that we have. We must innovate and find efficiencies while prioritizing projects that have high return on investment. I support this provincial budget, not because it is perfect, but because it is the best that can be done under the impossible circumstances created by the ANC, who have further exacerbated load shedding, exacerbated the port crisis, increased inequality in South Africa, and increased unemployment. I support this budget, Speaker, because the Western Cape is a government that can make tough decisions, even when they're unpopular.
Marie, your time has expired. Please conclude.
Speaker, to conclude, I support this budget, and come May 2024, I know that the people of this province and country will do so too by voting you out.
Thank you very much, Honourable Murray. Thank you, Honourable Murray. Honourable Klaas, are you on the virtual platform?
Yeah, Speaker, I'm on the virtual platform.
All right, I recognize you, Honourable Klaas. You may continue.
Okay, Speaker, I'm busy now opening the file for me.
Order
to
members,
address
I'm struggling to hear the member.
Do you hear me now?
Honourable Klaas, your time is starting.
Okay. Speaker, the speech provided by the Minister of Finance and the Economic Opportunity when they tabling the media-term budget policy statement and the adjustment budget of 2023-24 financial year has all the hallmarks of a failed government. Speaker, when it comes to safety, it makes no sense how this provincial government decided to cut the law enforcement budget by 22 million, whereas crime is the province continue to grow. For we do not have to look far. The recent second quarterly crime statistic for 2023 paints a very gloomy and consistent picture about the ability of Western Cape to fight crime. As things stand, and the province fighting as a losing battle against crime and criminal syndicates operating with impunity. Cape Town Central Police Station remains number one police station in the whole country when it comes to serious reported crimes. Nyanga is also back when it comes to the conduct crime. The highest number rate in the whole of South Africa happens here in Delft. This is what revealed by the recent Table National Crime Statistics. What is also shocking is that when the premier of this province began his terms in the 6th Parliament, he introduced a plan which will affect by leap offices, but today we are told that the budget that has been cut. Safety plan has not produced result. In education, the Western Cape school placement system remains a disaster, as many Black and colored learners are often rejected in quintile 4 and 5 schools as white are preferred. It is the high time we move away from this system and have a transparent school placement system. In jobs, on the issue of jobs, the minister claims its government creating enable environment for jobs. In this recent past, they have made it clear that by this, they largely refer to direct foreign investment in the province for purpose of job creation. While we have no issue with the foreign direct investment per se, the people of Western Cape need sustainable jobs that will assist them in affording a necessary of life and providing for their families. It's not enough to speak about foreign direct investment and job creation. While you predominantly refer to a temporary call center jobs and part-time jobs, what is needed for our people is to empower in order to give them jobs created themselves. This is a provincial government must start to empower people to township who are running their own business. Small business integral part of the economy makes that many families have food on table. The government must empower and assist communities who are involved in food gardenings for both financial and substance. Speaker, on the health issue, when it comes to the health, our people in township are still struggling to functionally clinic. The majority of our people is still subjected as long queues and most of even running without receiving assistance. As we speak, in Nyanga Central District has dysfunctional help desk. 7 to 8 to 9, they still remain unattended, and the same clinic will rush to close earlier. Infrastructure, Speaker, the housing backlog is in the province. Is
Honourable
doing
Klaas,
about it.
your time has expired.
Recently, Shakes banned
Please
in
conclude.
Nyanga near Home Affairs, and there is no one assisting them. That people, we have hopeless government. Thank you.
Thank you
I
very much,
reject
Honourable
the
Klaas. I recognize the Honourable Pretorius.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, when the great author Ernest Hemingway was asked for his definition of courage, he responded simply, and I quote, "Grace under pressure." That quote has been on my mind in recent weeks as our country grapples with the stark reality of our predicament. Today, it's both my honor and my duty to rise in support of this adjustment budget. But I do so cognizant of the fact that this government has been forced to make the best of a very, very bad situation. Decades upon decades of incessant looting, blatant corruption, and constant malfeasance on the part of the ANC have left our country in a state of profound financial distress. Saddled by an ill-conceived public wage agreement, all of our provinces, including the Western Cape, now face significant shortfalls. To put it in blunt terms, there is simply no more money left. As my colleagues have noted, we are short of more than R1 billion in our province. It is only through the near superhuman efforts of this government, in particular Minister Wenger, and their very able men and women at Provincial Treasury, that we have kept our frontline services afloat. The Department of Health and Wellness, whose standing committee I chair, has received a modest increase, allowing for some of the Western Cape's most important health services to remain funded. District health services, emergency medical services, and central hospital services have all received slight increases. This comes at the cost of large-scale cuts to the health facilities management budget, as well as cuts elsewhere in government. Even so, this vital department, responsible for the well-being of our people, still finds itself 20% short of what it needs to pay salaries at the rate the national government agreed to. Speaker, and this is merely the tip of the iceberg. At the start of this year, the ANC government gutted the health sector conditional grants. With this budget, they've continued to do so. Among other cuts, more than 57 million rand has been cut from the health facility revitalization grant. 674,000 has been lost from the social sector expanded public works program incentive grant. And the staggering 66.5 million rand has been cut from the HIV/AIDS component of the district health programs grant. Speaker, this means that national government's cash-strapped situation will now cut into the funds that saves lives. In recent weeks, the ANC has attempted to spin this budget. They've suggested that my party takes pride in these spending cuts and that this budget's provisions are somehow the fault of this government and the party that it leads. This is a notion that would be laughable were it not so utterly tragic. In these statements, we see a once great titan of the South African political landscape grasping at straws as our people realize the truth that years of ANC looting and incompetence have brought the gravy train to a screeching halt. The money has run out. The party is over. There is nothing left to steal. And yet still, the ANC would come here and criticize this government for its efforts to weather the storm. This budget
Honourable
represents the best
Pretorius,
option.
please take your seat. Honourable Chief Whip, is that a point of order?
Speaker, in terms of Rule 39, can the Honourable Class please be muted? I'm not sure what is in the mall, but it is causing a disturbance. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chief Whip. Honourable members, I'm still in the chair. Order, members. Honourable, can I please ask that the table staff please mute Honourable Class? Honourable Pretorius, my apologies. You may continue.
Thank you, Speaker. This budget represents the best option we have, the path forward through an impossible ANC-created situation. For that reason, Speaker, I support this budget, but I also stand firmly in support of this government's decision to launch an intergovernmental dispute to get the money we are owed. We cannot and we will not allow the debts of our failing national rulers to be inherited by the same citizens of our country that have had their public funds stolen from them. This DA-led government will do what it has always done. It will courageously face the challenge. It will fight and get on with the task. It will fight for the money rightly owed to the people of the Western Cape. And it will put itself on the line to make sure that each and every one of our residents, including the elderly, the sick, the poor, and the destitute, and the members opposite, are insulated from the catastrophe that the party opposite has become to our country. Speaker, that is courage. That, Speaker, is grace under pressure. But if this constant creeping erosion of the state by its own rulers continues, courage alone will take us only so far. While I support this budget, as well as the efforts of our government to recover the money we need from National Treasury, I also stand in support of the only measure which will get us out of this situation permanently, a change in national government at the next elections. We cannot continue to keep a party in power that has spent a third of a century decimating everything they touch. Next year, for the first time in 3 decades, there will be a real possibility of removing the ANC from power. I urge the people of our nation, so often the exemplars of grace under pressure, to harness their courage and make the change. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Pretorius. Order, members. Honourable members, the next honourable members on the virtual platform, I recognise the Honourable de Villiers.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Success is what you can see a scoreboard. Significance goes much more deeper than that. That is what's unseen. The more I listen to the budgets, the readjusted budgets being tabled in this house, and despite me being a member of this house, the more I tend to agree with the growing calls to do away with this level of government. By doing that, we would free up these billions of rands we are being asked to vote on to address the urgent and genuine needs of the people, such as a basic income grant, free education, home-based caregivers, and the development of rural areas. All I have experience in this tier of government to be is an unnecessary drain of the figures and a bottleneck to service delivery and development. We should be realizing both human and material resources caught up in this glorified administration that costs taxpayers billions to strengthen local government and service to the people rather than it being swallowed up by the bureaucracy I see all around me in these proceedings. The existence of this parliament has not added value to service delivery, and the hope that this tier of government would ensure the value of a people's assembly has not materialized. It is currently being manipulated from with suggestions of increased membership, devolution, and cessation in order to suit specific agendas. All it has done and continues to do is entrench tribalism and regionalism. The budget before us all the budgets before us all seek to entrench the status quo. So the good party cannot support this. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable de Villiers. I now recognize the Minister of Police Oversight and Community Safety, Minister Allen.
Honourable Speaker,
Order, members.
Honourable Speaker, Honourable Premier, Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition, Honourable Members, Honoured Guest, Speaker, please allow me to also welcome the delegation from Ethiopia. It is located in the Horn of Africa. And in being located in the Horn of Africa, it is very clear today that the Western Cape government, and as the saying goes, takes the bull by the horns, which ultimately means that we need to take tough and decisive action. And that is what we are doing here
Order, members.
today,
Honourable
Speaker.
Minister, Honourable Minister, can I please order, members? Order, members. Order.
So yes,
Honourable Minister, can I please remind you to please speak to me and not engage the members in the gallery?
Honourable Speaker, thank you so much. So yes, as a Western Cape government, we do take the bull by the horns. And I want to remind this particular house that it was in June 2019 when the ANC made a claim that the Democratic Alliance was fabricating information with regards to sepsis under-resourcing. The record will reflect, and that will be allocated to the leader of the opposition. However, it has been established that the national government will never, Speaker, provide the South African Police Service with the relevant, necessary and required resources to combat crime in the Western Cape. Quite frankly, for the ANC, it is the protection and safekeeping of themselves first before the citizens of this province and our country. Speaker, crime, particularly murder, continues to plague our communities. It is the responsibility of the South African Police Service, as mandated in the Constitution, to serve and protect all, but they are expected to do so without the relevant and required resources. As a reminder, we currently have just less than 90,000 officers that should be on the ground. Ideally at station level, nationally, it should be 193,476, but we are actually only at 105,000. So when in 2019, the ANC made the claim that we are fabricating under-resourcing in the South African Police Service. At that particular time, the police to population ratio for the South African Police Service at the national level was 1 officer for every 315 residents. In the Western Cape, it was 1 officer for every 509 residents. It wasn't a fabrication. As I'm standing here today, the situation is even more dire, as the average in the Western Cape is now 1 officer for every 550 residents. So, Speaker, as the Western Cape government, we continue to see what the national government is doing, and this is part of the reason why the Premier in 2019 initiated the Western Cape Safety Plan. And may I remind, and to quote Member Nkondlo, when it's asked, where is the safety plan? Speaker, quite frankly, it is only the ANC in the Western Cape that is asking, where is the safety plan? Because KZN, ANC, has the safety plan. National government has the safety plan. And in 2020, the Western Cape safety plan was actually lifted.
Order,
before
members.
part-
Order. Honorable Minister, please take your seat. Honorable members, I've allowed some latitude because it is a political debate. I don't want to stifle your expressions, but please respect the speaker on the floor. Please do not drown out the speaker. Honorable Minister, can I please also remind you to speak to me?
Thank you. My eyes has been fixated on you. Thank you so much for leading this particular House, Speaker. So yes, during a benchmark visit to the Western Cape by the governing party in KZN, they have the safety plan. So when the ANC in the Western Cape asks, where's the safety plan? Premier Alan Winde will also make it available to them. That is why we have seen the shortfalls. This caring provincial government, we have stepped in, we have stepped up, knowing full well that we should not be doing SAPS's job, but because of our people that are suffering under the yoke of crime, we could not allow the ANC's failure to continue. Speaker, let me also remind this particular House, just 12 days ago, correspondence was sent by General Mawela, the PC for Gauteng, where he indicated in writing to the Premier of Gauteng that crime wardens in that particular province are not peace officers. I've also sent the Gazette to Gauteng colleagues of the ANC, and that Gazette is number 2849, because as a government here, and since my appointment, it was June last year, for the very first time, we have sent chrysalis graduates, which are peace officers. And as I'm standing here, we now have 417 peace officers, chrysalis graduates in the South African Police Service, helping and assisting in the CSC. That particular correspondence sent by the PC from Gauteng was stated that under no circumstances, crime wardens must work in a CSC. We have followed the law. We have ultimately used regulation to ensure that we can step in. So yes, Speaker,
Order.
as we are taking the bull by the horns, under difficult circumstances, we are losing more than 30 million rand, which has a direct impact on the efforts to combat crime in our province. Of the 745 million appropriated to the 2023-2024 financial year, this has now decreased by 4.1% to 714 million. When we discuss LEAP and whether LEAP is working in our province, the Eastern Cape, KZN and Gauteng over the last 4 years also increases in murder. This province have seen decreases. The only province out of those 4 murder hot provinces, only this province. So our Law Enforcement Advancement Plan Officer program has directly been impacted by this reduction. This budget now has a 22.3 million less. This is a body blow, but we are a resilient government whose primary concern is the safety of our residents. We are fully aware that the recent crime stats places Delft as the murder station in our country. We have been proactive in assisting SAPS in areas where the murder rate is the highest, and our LEAP officers is only in those murder hotspots. They are in our 13 murder hotspots. They are not somewhere on the beach. They are working in crime-ridden areas. And that is why when Member Nkondlo in this House, less than 27 minutes ago, when Member Nkondlo said, less than 27 minutes ago, the truth and the evidence is here and speaks for itself. She's quite correct. The truth and the evidence is here in the province that LEAP is working. We have been proactive in assisting the South African Police Service, and since LEAP's inception, there has been over 3,200 arrests and 57 firearm confiscations in the area of Delft alone. The Western Cape Liquor Authority, Speaker, which is an important entity in the regulation of liquor prices throughout the province, also sees a reduction of 1 million. This important role that they play in the liquor sector, particularly to reduce the harms associated with the abuse of liquor, cannot be highlighted enough. When we talk about Chrysalis, and this is deeply personal, and I'm very biased towards the Chrysalis Academy, I must state that this program has also
Honourable
seen,
Minister, please conclude. Your time has expired.
has also seen a reduction. So as I conclude, 2024 is approaching. We are taking the bull. The joke is on the ANC.
Order.
That narrative is long gone. It's long gone. You
Thank-
are failing as a
Thank you
as
very
an
much,
opposition,
Honourable Minister.
actually.
Your time is up.
You must
Thank you very much. Honourable Minister, please take your seat. I recognize the Honourable Christians. Order.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the ACDP is saddened that the Western Cape government must cut from essential services 1.1 billion rand to fund the shortfall of the wage bill. The ACDP is sad because the people of the Western Cape will suffer. But I will deal with this when it comes to the respective votes. Let me deal with the ANC Western Cape hosting the terrorist organization, the Hamas. The ANC will sell their soul because of a
Order.
dire need of money. They
Order.
are bankrupt financially and bankrupt morally.
Order.
The ANC colluding
Honourable,
with the
Honourable Christians, please take your seat. Honourable Side, is that a point of order?
Chair, the pastor is misleading the House. Hamas is not a terrorist organization, according
Honourable,
to South
Honourable
African
Side,
law.
please take your
He
seat.
supports a terrorist state of
Order,
Israel.
members.
He supports a murderous terrorist.
Honourable Side, please take your seat. Honourable members, that is not a point of order. This is a political debate. I will not allow freedom of speech to be stifled in this House. Honourable Christians, you may continue. Honourable members. Honourable members.
The ANC Western Cape is colluding with a recognized terrorist organization because they are trying.
Honourable Christians, please take your seat. Honourable members on my left. Honourable members. Honourable members on my left. Honourable members, there's a member on the floor. Hey, the honourable member is absolutely within his right to make a contribution. If you do not like the contribution, you cannot drown out the speaker. The same way I'm going to allow, the same way I've allowed anyone else to be protected while they are on the floor, I will do the same for Honourable Christians. Honourable members, you will not drown out the speaker on the floor. Honourable Christians, you may continue.
Thank you, Speaker. Let me repeat. The ANC is colluding with a well-recognized terrorist organization, the Hamas, because they are trying to get money to pay for the 2019 election. Because the sheriff is at the door. Speaker, nobody in their
Honourable
right
Christians,
minds.
please take your seat. Honourable members, Honourable Baku Force, Honourable Baku Force, I'm on the floor and you just continue. The same rights that you have, I have too. I have also been elected as a member of this House. Order, members. Honourable members, we are halfway through the debate. Honourable Christians, you may continue.
Speaker,
Honourable
nobody in their right mind.
Honourable Christians, please
will
take your seat.
receive a terrorist
Honourable,
organization.
take your seat, please. Honourable Dagmo, is there a point of order? What's your point of order?
Speaker, I would just like to, Speaker, I would just like to deal with,
Honourable Side and Honourable Nkondlo, there's a member on the floor.
I would just like to deal with your ruling in regard to the issue of freedom of speech and the honourable member's description of Hamas as a terrorist organization. And when we get to the, sorry, go. Because-
Honorable members on my left, there's a member of Honorable Dagmo, please take a seat. Honorable members on my left, there's a member, your leader of the opposition is standing. Can I please ask Honorable Said, can you please, there's a member of your political party on the floor. Can I please ask that you control the Honorable Dagmo, please continue.
No, thank you. Because when it comes to the issue of freedom of speech, we normally have certain conventions. Everyone knows that the United Nations recognizes both Fatah as the legitimate government in the West Bank and Hamas that was elected. The United Nations does not regard Hamas as a terrorist organization, yet a member comes to this house. So I want to ask you to rule on this matter. If the United Nations has a particular definition of that organization, and a member stands up in this house and goes against a United Nations declaration of the state of a certain authority, is that freedom of speech?
Thank you very much, Honorable Dagmo. That is not a point of order. I'm not going to rule on the content of contributions. It's not for me to rule. Honorable Christians, you may continue. Honorable members, this is the last time that I'm warning you. Honorable Christians, you may continue.
Speaker, nobody in their right minds will receive a terrorist organization like the Hamas in Cape Town who committed heinous crimes, rape, torture, burn babies, cutting the heads of children. The ANC must tell us, because I think, Speaker, they brought money to bail out the ANC. They brought money to bail out the ANC for the 2024 election. And that is what they're doing. The ANC is just lip service when it comes to human rights, when it comes to gender-based violence, and the ANC is on life support. The voter must pull the plug that the ANC can die in 2024.
Thank you, Honorable Christians. Please take your seat. Honorable Vin Vogel, Honorable Barnes, there's a member on the floor. Honorable
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, I want to raise a point of order on the relevance really of what the pastor is. You see now he's saying I'm a young man. He's saying young man.
Honorable Kama, can you please address me and not engage?
No. I really want to.
Order. Members, there's a member on the floor. Honorable Said, can I please ask that you assist me?
On the relevance.
Okay, if you don't want to assist me.
Surely he was elected to be in this house to represent the people of the province. And here we are dealing with the appropriations. And I don't know what he's talking about. Can you please bring him into the order of the house?
Thank you very much, Honorable Kama. And Honorable Kama, this is a wide political debate. It's always been a wide political debate. And for that reason, the honorable members were absolutely within the right to make that contribution. Honorable Mvimbi, what's your point of order?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. On a point of order that in this house, we are always referring to each other as honorable members, even if you disagree with the person who's speaking. The Honorable Christian is referred to Honorable Kama as a young man. Can he please just withdraw that statement?
Thank you very much, Honorable Mvimbi. Honorable members, can I please remind all the honorable members in this house that we are all honorable members. Honorable Christians, you may continue. I have 44 seconds.
The Honorable Young Man Kama, is that fine?
Honorable Christians, please take your seat. Honorable Baka Force, is there a point of order?
Yes, Speaker. I think Honorable Pastor, not Christian, Honorable Pastor is worried about election already. He can come and join the ANC. We are not worried about anything. And that's the point of Tulaput.
Order members, honorable member, that for the record, that is not a point of order. Honorable members, I'm not going to allow any further points of orders upon For points of orders, Honourable Christians, you may continue. Just a reminder, you have 44 seconds left of your time.
Speaker, the ACDP supports this vote, and the ACDP will continue to support the vote because we must, like I said in closing, the ANC is on life support. The vote in 2024 must pull the plug that they can die. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Christians. Order members, can I get some order before I recognize the next Honourable member? Order members, order Honourable Barnes. I now recognize the Honourable Fry.
Honourable Speaker, the lack of reliable electricity supply has dogged this nation for over 15 years. And the problem has increased in the severity of the stage, pun intended, where we had 180 days of load shedding in the first half of 2023. That is only 1 day in 6 months of uninterrupted power supply. As per the medium-term budget policy statement recently tabled by Minister Wenger, this province is estimated to have lost between 48.6 billion and 61.2 billion in real GDP since load shedding was first introduced. And in 2023, at stage 4, this province loses 43 million rand per day. As we all know, Speaker, there have been times this year when stage 4 would have been a welcome respite from 10 hours of no power per day. This is a crisis, and one which has been both a cause and effect of the current fiscal instability which the ANC has brought upon this country. So what has been done? What solutions have been offered to an energy crisis that has decimated our economy and left thousands, if not millions, jobless? Let's contrast the national government's response versus the Western Cape's response. Speaker, the president, at his reactionary best, appointed a Minister of Electricity, implicitly admitting that both the Ministers of Public Enterprises as well as the Mineral Resources and Energy have no answer to this crisis. Now, in the year of our Lord 2023, over 9 months ago to when he was into his tenure, Minister Ramaphosa still does not have a job description. Even worse than that, he does not have a plan. At the recent engagement with the ad hoc committee on the energy crisis, when asked when load shedding will end, he couldn't commit to a date. The implication of this is simple. The ANC has painted itself into a corner. Year after year, they commit to fixing the problem. Year after year, they fail to do so. Speaker, contrast this with the Western Cape's response. To begin, let's start with the city of Cape Town. During the week, because of being good managers of the Steenbras hydroelectric plant, the city of Cape Town supplied areas have enough electricity that residents experience up to 2 stages less of load shedding than the rest of the country. This buffer means that the economy of the city is not affected as the rest of the country, allowing economic activity to endure and jobs to be created. Is it any wonder then that Cape Town's economy has consistently driven job creation in our country? Now, let's turn to the rest of the municipalities in the province. In the various deliberations with the ad hoc committee on the energy crisis this year, the municipalities of the province outlined their efforts in mitigating load shedding. These included the provision of generators, both built-in and mobile, so that water supply and wastewater treatment works would not be affected during load shedding. This shows that the 88 million rand that this government has made available has been put to good use by the municipalities in ensuring that services are still delivered to their citizens. Speaker, again, as outlined in the medium-term budget policy statement tabled last week, this government is piloting different energy projects to move towards achieving energy resilience as soon as possible and transitioning to a net carbon zero by 2050. These include, among others, and I quote, alternative energy support that is providing funding for alternative energy systems, the Western Cape Integrated Resource Plan, an evidence-based guide on Western Cape strategic priorities and energy infrastructure development, the municipal wheeling enablement, putting LED lightings in schools, and the just energy transition plan. Honorable Speaker, in addition to the above, this government continues to deliver on the pledge of mitigating the effects of load shedding as far as it possibly can. And for the residents of Riversdale, that pledge will become a reality. As announced on Thursday by the Premier, a solar photovoltaic project producing 15 million kilowatt hours annually will take the town completely off the grid and relieve it of its reliance on Eskom. In effect, Madam Chair, this government is building the first load shedding free town in South Africa. But this is more than just production of power and taking over constitutional duty of Eskom to provide electricity, as noted in the latest judgments against the National Minister of Electricity in relation to the provision of electricity to schools, hospitals, and police stations. This is about bringing hope. This is about bringing hope to the people of Riversdale for a brighter future of better opportunities and economic freedom. And in time, this model will be rolled out to other towns so that the hope that a constant supply of electricity brings will spread to all corners of the province. Finally, Honorable Speaker, given all the efforts outlined above, two things are clear. Number one, there must be a complete overhaul of the power sector, since we cannot follow the current status quo. Eskom must be unbundled and there must be more diverse sources of power and decentralization if the sector is to adequately meet the demand of more electricity going forward. And two, the reticulation of power must be devolved to capable provincial and local governments. This government has already demonstrated on more than one occasion that it is competent enough to do so. Hence the need for devolution of powers as prescribed in the Western Cape Powers Bill that cannot come quickly enough. This House must support this government's fight for what we are owed from national government. Every example I've given today demonstrates why the Western Cape works. National is determined to undermine this through lack of funding. And Speaker, we cannot let them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Fry. For the members, I recognize the Honourable Marais.
Tula Andivile.
Order, members. There's a member on the floor. Order. Honourable Marais, you may continue.
Speaker, I rise in support of this adjustment appropriation bill, but also rise to protest against the extreme budget cut by National Parliament. To vote against this budget would be akin to blaming a seriously abused woman with many children whose lazy, irresponsible husband wasted his salary on trivialities and on liquor and then expect her to feed and clothe her children regardless. This adjustment budget does not and cannot meet our total requirements, nor provide for all matters incidental thereto. It's plain for everyone to see. The Western Cape is continuously being punished by the National Treasury in spite of outshining all other provinces under ANC control. Whereas pouring money into other 8 provinces is like pouring water into a bucket full of holes, the Western Cape still managed to flourish and achieve most of our objectives regardless. Since 1994, South Africa has been invaded by rapists, murderers, corruptors, corruptees, the implosion of state enterprises, and a devalued rand, low economic growth, and high inflation. This budget screams for federal autonomy for the Western Cape. It screams for the Western Cape to unshackle ourselves from this disastrous concept of majority rule over everyone else, even though they are incompetent and corrupt. The Freedom Front Plus has investigated and compiled a 500-page report of complaints by hundreds of patients at 93 state hospitals throughout South Africa regarding horrific treatment and inhuman experiences suffered by patients between July 2022 and July 2023. We have referred it to the Human Rights Commission for investigation. These complaints speak of rude and hostile nurses, incompetent, undertrained. In South Africa, we have too much freedom and too little responsibilities. I support this budget under protest and wish to
Honorable
encourage
Marais,
the
your time has expired. Please conclude.
I want to encourage the Premier to continue the fight for more powers or self-rule for the province in terms of Article 235.
Thank you,
We
Honorable
owe
Marais.
it to this
Thank you.
Western Cape province.
Thank you, Honorable
And I
Marais.
thank the ANC for their
Thank you, Honorable
silence.
Marais. Thank you, Honorable Marais. I now recognize the Honorable Minister of Education, Minister Mania.
Thank you, Speaker. Before I begin, I think I should note that it's rich to get a lecture from the leader of the opposition on proper planning from a party that brought us stage 6 load shedding. It is also rich to get a lecture from the Honourable Nomin Kondlo on the living wage, when just last year headlines screamed, ANC hasn't paid salaries. And I think it's also rich to get a lecture from the leader of the opposition
Order.
on reading speeches.
Order. Honorable Minister, please take your seat. I'm trying to make sure that you get that same opportunity like everyone else did. Honorable members, can I please ask for your indulgence? We're nearing the end of the speakers list. Honorable Tama, is that a point of order?
Yes, Speaker.
What is your point of order?
Speaker, can you also caution the minister, because as he's dancing, he's moving out of his seat.
It is not order, members.
And I'm worried that he will end up addressing us from another seat of another member, and that is not allowed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kama, honorable members. That is not a point of order. The Honorable Minister is in fact in his bench. Honorable Minister, you may continue.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. As I was saying, it's rich of the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to give this House a lecture on reading a speech. When unlike the Leader of the Opposition, the Honourable Kayla Murray can actually write a speech and deliver a speech eloquently. Think, Honourable Speaker, of our guests, who in a few moments will have to endure a full 12-minute speech and indeed stay awake through a 12-minute speech by the Leader of the Opposition. Think of them, Honourable Speaker. Now, Honourable Speaker, you will know that this country now is in a full fiscal emergency. And how did that happen? How did that happen? Well, we know exactly how it happened. The national government has mismanaged the national economy. The national government has mismanaged state-owned enterprises. The national government has mismanaged the public wage negotiations, signing a wage deal that it simply could not afford. And that, of course, should not come as a surprise, because the ANC has a fiscal emergency of their own, and in fact know a lot about debt, with the sheriff of the court arriving outside the party headquarters demanding an outstanding balance of 102 million rand. But Speaker, to illustrate just how serious this problem is, our country is now spending about 35 billion rand more on debt service costs this year than it will spend on basic education. Think about that. We are spending 35 billion rand more this year on debt service costs than we are spending on basic education. And of course, as a consequence of this, our country has been put in a terrible position, sacrificing service delivery to balance the books, leaving provinces scrambling to pick up the pieces. The collapse of the national budget process has created an environment of extreme uncertainty, with the immediate impact on our plans for infrastructure, as we could not enter into contractor agreements without having certainty that they would have the funds to pay. We have now understand the full scale of the fiscal emergency. The National Treasury has not funded or fully funded the wage deal. Instead, we only received 64% of the funding due to us, which means that we have been shortchanged by 537 million rand this year alone, which is exactly why the Western Cape government has declared an intergovernmental dispute on the shortfall for funding the increased wage bill with national government, and has an absolutely clear message. Give us 1.1 billion rand or we will see you in court. At the same time, the Department of Basic Education also cut our conditional grants by a massive 179.4 million. Most importantly, cutting the education infrastructure grant by 156.9 billion. I don't think the opposition properly understands the gravity of the situation. So let me be perfectly clear. The national government has dealt a massive 716.4 million rand blow to our ability to build and maintain schools and indeed to pay teachers. And as a result, we face a 248 million rand cut to our infrastructure budget within this financial year. Other provinces are also speaking up about the consequence of this devastating blow to our provincial education budgets across the country. Even the National Minister of Finance has recognized the consequences of the budget cuts, when in his own medium-term budget policy statement, he stated, this could lead to larger class sizes and higher learner-to-teacher ratios, possibly resulting in weaker educational outcomes. So the question I must ask is, how on earth national government can credibly stand up and say that they are putting the needs of learners and teachers in poor communities first? The truth is that basic education is not a priority of national government, because when it comes to a choice between more money for education or more money for South African Airways, they choose more money to bail out South African Airways. When it comes to a choice between more money for education or more money to bail out Transnet, they choose to bail out Transnet. And when it comes to a choice between more money for education or more money to bail out Denel, they choose more money to bail out Denel. The fact is, and our guests will be shocked to hear this, over 5 years, the national government have wasted over 233 billion rand in bailouts to zombie state-owned enterprises, which is the equivalent of about 2,330 schools. So I think if the official opposition were honest, and like the national minister, take responsibility and own up, then we would expect the leader of the opposition to say, yes, the ANC has mismanaged the economy. Yes, the ANC has mismanaged state-owned enterprises. Yes, the ANC has mismanaged.
Minister, please conclude. Your time has expired.
The ANC has imposed massive budget cuts on this province. And yes, the ANC is responsible for overcrowded classes.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Your time.
Province.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Please take your seat. Thank you very much. I now recognize the leader of the official opposition, Honourable Doug Moore.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I would like to join you and say Amalungu wase-Ethiopia siyabuya kakhulu ukuba nibakhona namhlanje. Sithi ons is baie bly dat julle hier is en sithi siza kudibana siza kuthawak. Enkosi. Speaker, I think it's clear that any discussion about a budget must be framed in terms of the Constitution of the Republic. And I think we're all aware that the Constitution of the Republic makes it very clear that in all that we do, we have to take redress measures to make sure that those South Africans who were unfairly discriminated against by apartheid, that measures are taken in terms of a budget, in terms of other things that we do to specifically benefit historically disadvantaged South Africans who suffered unfair discrimination. Now, the first thing we need to say that this government of the ANC at a national level is not penalizing any province. There is a finance and fiscal commission which has a formula looking at rural, urban, and that formula determines how much a province gets. So any attempt by the Democratic Alliance to imply that there is penalization of the Western Cape is not true. The reality is the population of Gauteng and the population of our province, because people from Limpopo seek work in Gauteng, people from the Eastern Cape seek work in Gauteng and the Western Cape. So our populations have gone up, and as we progress, the Fiscal and Finance Commission will recognize that and continue. So we should make that very clear. The reality is, however, Speaker, that this provincial government of the Western Cape is a democratic alliance government. And the reality is that in every single aspect, they do not use the resources that they have to deal with inequality. We have a situation, as Honorable Member Kondlo mentioned, that in regard to youth unemployment, and I want to emphasize this, that unemployment in the Western Cape when the ANC was governing was lower than it is now. I also want to say when the ANC was governing this province, the rate of crime was lower than it is now. And that is what we need to accept.
Order, members.
So this provincial government is quick to condemn the national government, but it fails to acknowledge the resilience of our national economy led by the ANC government. We must understand this country went through COVID, adverse and devastating impact on our national economy. Yet the ANC-led government made sure that the 350 Rand social relief grant helped our people. What did the DA do in this province? They simply complained. Our president, we all know that when 2 million jobs were lost, and you must remember that every time a job gets lost, fewer people pay VAT, fewer people pay income tax. The president announced an unprecedented stimulus package. That is to spend money, to borrow money and spend to stimulate. And that was 2 million jobs. And the president then created youth employment stimulus, which created over 1 million jobs. What did the DA do while the president was creating 1 million jobs for our young people? They simply complained. When over another 1 million young people accessed opportunities for learning and earning through others going to our schools and assisting, 1 million that the president intervened because of the slow growth post-COVID. The DA did nothing else but simply complain. When the ANC insisted that too little attention was being paid to the agricultural sector by the Premier, what did the DA do? They ignored our advice, and now the sector in this province has contracted. But our minister, Toko Dudiza, the National Minister of Agriculture, has intervened to make sure that there are new markets for South African farmers in China and in Saudi Arabia, specifically for avocados and beef. And that has actually led at a national level that the agricultural economy is now 60.2 billion Rand worth of exports. That is 13% higher. So slowly but surely, our economy is beginning to pick up after. No doubt we're in a difficult situation because if your economy has been affected by COVID, you collect less revenue and you have constraints. But the national government has not penalized in any way. And you have an MEC walking into this room at the moment. And I just
Order.
want to say to our Ethiopian colleagues that this particular MEC is the MEC for agriculture. And in our province, the Western Cape, only 3% of agricultural land is owned by African people and colored people. 97% of agricultural land is owned by whites. And when we asked that particular MEC,
Honorable,
he said,
Honorable Dagmore, can I please remind you to speak to me and not to engage the members in the gallery? Order, members. Order, members. Honorable Dagmore, please take your seat. Honorable Dagmore, please take your seat.
I'm covered by your ruling. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable Dagmore.
and I also
please
want
continue.
to say, Speaker, we meet at the outset of 16 days of activism. And I also want to inform our Ethiopian friends and to remind the DA that when it comes to gender-based violence, their own leader, someone called John Steenhuisen, who divorced his wife, he said, oh, well, it's just roadkill. He described the impact of a broken relationship as, oh, it's roadkill. That just shows how little. And then there is an official, a chief director of this provincial government who is in court for attempted rape of another public servant. That official has not even been suspended by this provincial government. He continues to work.
Honorable Dagmore, please take your seat. Honorable Marie, what's your point of order?
Speaker, did you rule that we cannot engage the people on the gallery when we speak? The honorable member of the opposition speak to the gallery. He addressed the gallery, sir. I want you to rule on that. Can we address the gallery?
Thank you very much, Honorable Marie. Honorable members, I've already ruled on that. Honorable Mvimbi. I've already ruled on that, honorable members. You cannot engage or communicate to the members of the gallery. Honorable Dagmore, can I please ask that you please speak through me and address me?
Thank you. I think it's also important to note that when we look at this budget, the opposition DA has talked about them being forced into a public wage agreement. Now, the reality is you cannot pay a public servant in Limpopo less or more than we have a national public service. So what the DA, and I think it's important, and I'm looking straight to you, that our Ethiopian friends also realize that when our national government came up with a minimum wage of between 4,000 and 5,000, the Democratic Alliance said, no, that's too much for a minimum wage. They said in their own policy document, 1,800. So now, if we have a situation and the Provincial Powers Bill has already been declared by your own lawyers as unconstitutional. So the reality is,
Honorable Dagmore, please take your seat. Honorable Minister Meyer, is that a point of order?
Yes.
What's your point of order?
It is a point of order.
What's your point of order? Honorable members, I am still the speaker. I do not need your assistance. Honorable members. Order, Honorable Minister, what's your point of order?
Chair, Rule 66.
What's your order, members?
I rise on Rule 66.
Honorable Minister, please speak to me. Minister, you're on the honorable members. Minister, you're on the floor.
On the floor.
On a point of order. You only
order.
addressed the point of order to the presiding officer. So can you please direct it to me?
To the presiding officer, Rule 66 speaks to parliamentary practice. And I think the honorable leader of the official opposition just broke parliamentary practice by saying that the lawyers of my party has declared the Western Cape Powers Bill unconstitutional. That is not correct. It is incorrect. That information is misleading. And I would therefore ask him to withdraw their statement because You may not lie in this house like they lie in the
Order.
National Assembly. This house. we
Order,
do-
members. There's a member on the floor.
I respectfully request that the honourable member just withdraw and then he can proceed and there will be peace in the house.
Thank you, Honourable. Thank you, Honourable Minister, Mayor. Honourable Minister, from the chair, I do not adjudicate on the content or the statement being made. That was not a transgression of the rule. There's other mechanisms if you want to bring the attention to the House to a misleading or untrue statement. And for that reason, Honourable Dagmo, you may continue.
Thank you. Speaker, could I
Honourable Dagmo, please take your seat. Honourable Mayor.
Chair, because we are disciplined on this side of the house, I respect your ruling and I will sit down.
That is not a point of order, Honourable Minister. Thank you very much. Honourable Dagmo, please continue.
Thank you, Speaker. It would be useful if the table could just indicate how many of my 12 minutes are left.
You have 4 minutes and 32 seconds remaining.
The issue that I want to raise, we have one public service. So you can't say that you want to pay your public servants less or a teacher less than a teacher in the Eastern Cape. So the point that I'm actually making, this DA wants a minimum wage of 1,800, whereas nationally it's 4,500. So actually what we have, if they want to get their provincial powers bill through, that means that they're going to pay starvation wages to whoever they want. And we're not going to allow you. The Western Cape is part of South Africa, and it will always remain part of South Africa in a united country. And I also want to say to Honorable Christians, he was going on about Hamas. Many of the comrades sitting here, we were also called terrorists because we fought in the African National Congress. We fought to liberate this country. And they called us terrorists. Margaret Thatcher, George Bush called us terrorists. Whether you like it or not, Hamas, Fatah all have to be part of the solution. Hamas was elected in Gaza. Fatah was elected in the West. The minute you call people terrorists, you undeny that they're in a liberation struggle. And United Nations and international law says oppressed people who are occupied are allowed to fight a liberation struggle. That's what's happening. And I want to say that when I talked about agricultural land, you see, this government has choices when it comes to budgets. No, please, you're becoming irritating now. You're becoming very
Order,
irritating.
members. Honourable Dagmo, please take your seat. Honourable Minister, is that a point of order? Honourable members on my left, there's a member on the floor on a point of order. Allow the member to rise on that point.
Reform. Is he willing to take?
Honourable members. Order, members. Honourable Minister, you may continue.
Chairperson.
Order, members. Honourable Minister, please take your seat. Honourable members, this will be the last warning on both sides of the House. Honourable members, I've pleaded with you throughout the session. And I will now move over to naming members. Honourable Minister, you may continue with your point of order. I will recognize you as soon as the Minister has completed his point of order.
I'd like to know if the honourable member would like to take a very serious question.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable Dagmo, are you prepared to take a question? Not prepared. The Honourable member is not prepared to take a question. Honourable Kama.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, I would like to address you. You know, would appreciate if you were to use the strong language that you are using against us, against the minister. Earlier, you spoke to us and told us that we must stop raising these frivolous points of orders. And the minister is doing exactly that. And when he raises the point of order, he goes on to talk about other things. When you, as the speaker in the House, we know that if you want to ask a member if he's willing to take a question, you just stand up and ask that. And you are not allowed to even talk as to what type of question is going to be that. And you are not calling him into order. It's him who's causing this chaos in this house, as we are now left to fight for ourselves. You must stop with these frivolous points of order.
Thank you, honourable members. Honourable Dagmar, you may continue. Honourable members, just for the record, that is not a point of order. I take note of your comment. Honourable Dagmar, please continue.
Thank you. And when I'm speaking about the DA wanting to pay workers less in this province, this legislature is a prime example. Workers in this provincial legislature of the Western Cape get paid less than legislature staff in all other provinces. So the reality is they want to pay exploitative starvation wages of a minimum wage of 1,800 Rand. And if you look at that in comparison to the ANC, if you look at the issue of worker ownership, since 2019, 154,000 workers obtained ownership of shares at companies where they worked for. And that brings the total of share ownership by workers in our country to 550,000 workers are actually, and now you have the same DA who says broad-based black economic empowerment must be scrapped. The same DA who says the public service must be halved. And we have 555,000 workers who not only get a salary, but they get a share of a
Honourable Dagmar, please take your seat. Honourable Minister Fernandez, is that a point of order?
Speaker, yes, I rise to ask if it's appropriate for the leader to read his speech from his telephone.
Thank you, Honourable Sandra. Thank you, Honourable Fernandez, Minister Fernandez. I've earlier ruled on that. I'm not going to rule on it again. Honourable Dagmar, you may continue.
So I'm saying that resources and budgets must be about redress. Now, in this province, I've mentioned that only 3% of black people, African and coloured, own agricultural land. 3%. When it comes to urban land, let me tell the DA the truth here. 70% of urban land in this province is owned by white South Africans. 70% out of a population of 15%. When it comes to coloured South Africans only own 10.7% of urban land, whereas they are 48% of this population. But member Murray doesn't say anything about that. When it comes to urban land ownership, African people, who member Murray calls refugees, who constitute 32% of the Western Cape, only own 3.5% of the land in this province. Those urban land statistics are worse than in all other provinces except the Northern Cape when it comes to urban land ownership. So when you have a budget and the Constitution says redress, why don't you use that budget? I want to talk about, lastly, an example about Eskom power and DA city power. When you go and buy for 100 Rand, when you go and buy electricity for 100 Rand from Eskom, no. Yes, we are the first to admit that load shedding is negative. We need to deal with it. But right now,
Order.
Right now, the lights are on. Can we all see the lights are on? Right. So now,
Order, members.
Sorry, Speaker.
Order, please take your seat. Order, members. Order, members. You're drowning out the speaker. Order, members. Honourable Dagmar, please continue.
So I want to make the point, Speaker, that when you go to Eskom and you buy electricity for 100 Rand, you get 42 units. When you go and buy power from the DA city of Cape Town, you pay 100
Honourable
Rand.
Dagmar, your time has expired. Please conclude.
I will conclude by saying that you get 23 units for 100 Rand. So the reality is here in this province, if you are poor and you have to buy from the city, you can't buy electricity anyway.
Thank you. Please take your seat.
Thank
you very much. Honourable Dagmar, I've asked you to take your seat. Honourable Dagmar. Honourable Dagmar. Honourable Dagmar, I've asked you on more than one occasion to take your seat. Honourable members, please settle down. I recognize the Honourable Bartman.
Speaker, Honourable Speaker, I first would like to start by welcoming a mentee of the Ripples of Hope organization of mine, Sinovuyo Mankai, as well as the delegation of Ethiopia. Speaker, the Minister Wenger, she tabled an adjustment budget to build in our province amongst the context of national government budget cuts. The ANC national government centrally agreed to above inflation public wage agreement for all provinces, not just the Western Cape. The impact on our province specifically was approximately 2.9 billion rand. Not only has National Treasury turned around and indicated that they will not fully fund all provinces for the full cost of the public wage deal, which they agreed to. But these costs have already been implemented in provinces mid-year this year. It is centrally applied on PERSAL, which means provinces, all provinces, not only the Western Cape, are already impacted by the cost. In KwaZulu-Natal, they're going to overspend by 10 million rand, and they said that they're going to run out of money. There's no money. It is not a funded budget. The Western Cape is receiving just over 1.5 billion rand from National Treasury. And if you subtract that from the 2.9, you will notice that the national government still owes the Western Cape just over 1.1 billion rand. It is simple mathematics. The 1.7 billion rand only covers 78% of the public wage liability required by the health and education departments together in this province. To imagine what 1.1 billion rand looks like, it is the equivalent of 2,750 staff. This is, for example, 1,120 teachers in education, 755 nurses in health, and 875 other staff, including social workers. So we're not just fighting for the Western Cape for public wages, we're fighting for all provinces for public wages. It is further worthy to note that all provinces are not only experiencing these budget cuts due to the impact of a public wage agreement, but on top of this, we are experiencing severe budget cuts across conditional grants. And the member Dutmore speaker mentioned that he's going to reference the Constitution and we must allocate money accordingly. But in the Constitution, when we deal with the division of revenue across government, it says in section 214, an act of parliament must provide for the equitable division of revenue raised nationally amongst the national, provincial, and local spheres of government. It goes further to say that this act, the division of revenue that we table every single year, must take into account subsection D, the need to ensure that provinces and municipalities are able to provide basic services and perform the functions allocated to them. Further, the severe conditional grants indicated by national government on the Western Cape is over 642 million rand in budget cuts. For example, in the education budget, the education infrastructure grant for building schools, the grant that we get from national government is being cut by 156 million. The early childhood development grant by national government is being cut by 14 million rand. The HIV and AIDS life skill education grant from national is being cut by 3 million rand. The math, science and technology grant, speaker, is being cut by 4 million rand. I find it quite ironic, speaker, actually, that member Dugmore is indicating, speaks about land and how we're going to fight for people's land. But the ANC is the first to want to take your title deed away with the expropriation bill. They want to speak about shares of workers, but they're the first with the expropriation bill to want to take people's title deeds away. They want to come and say that where are we going to get money for this electricity?
Order.
But in the division of revenue
Order,
adjustment
members.
of 2023, National Treasury took back 14 billion rand meant for electricity that they could have given to local government and municipalities. They are cutting the Western Cape's comprehensive agricultural support program grant by 9 million rand. They are cutting our Lima Letsema agriculture projects grant by 1 million rand. They are cutting our agriculture land care program grant by 380,000 rand. And you can see this in the revision of revenue. Speaker, leaders are leaders. And we subtract the 642 million rand budget cut from conditional grants from the 1.7 billion rand in the provincial equitable share that we are receiving. It is a net increase of only 1 billion rand received in the adjustment budget. On top of this, we are getting nothing for the recent impact of the floods from national government. We must fund the impact ourselves. You know, Speaker, the member Dugmore indicated that we must allocate more provincial money, but the ANC is not able to comprehend how we put budgets together. In the provincial reserves at the moment, we have had to reduce our provincial reserves from 3.7 billion rand in the 2023 MTIF to 1.7 billion rand over the MTIF to counter the fiscal consolidation reduction from national government. That is 2 billion rand of our provincial own money that we had to go take to supplement the programs in the current budget. I'm reading from slide 32 of the 28 November presentation in the Western Cape Provincial Parliament Budget Committee. Further, the 2023 stabilization reserve of over 400 million rand has been depleted in response to the fiscal consolidation and the prolonged fiscal crisis. This means in 2024-2025 financial year, we have 668 million rand left in the provincial reserves. In 2025-26, we only have 699 million rand left in the provincial reserves. And in 2026-2027, we have 342 million rand in the provincial reserves. To put this into context, Speaker, the Western Cape Education Department received 943 million rand from the equitable share allocation for public wages. They have a 537 million rand shortfall on public wages. This means, and let us do basic mathematics, if we subtract the 537 million rand that we need to actually give to the Western Cape Education Department for the centrally agreed public wage deal from the 668 million rand left in the 2024 provincial reserve pot, you will be left with 131 million rand in the reserve. To visualize what the 131 million rand looks like, imagine cutting half of the whole Western Cape Provincial Parliament. These cuts are unprecedented because they apply in year. National Treasury officials, upon questioning them in the Budget Committee, confirmed, please finish building what you're currently building, but please don't build anything new in the current financial year. This means with the provincial reserves, there can be no fires, there can be no floods, no drought, no locusts, no COVID 2.0, no energy blackouts. This is the reality, and the reason we ended up here, Speaker, the ANC does not comprehend the magnitude of the actions of national government because they have champagne tastes on a beer budget. And when you live your best champagne life, you will end up with a sheriff on your doorstep, exactly in the manner that the ANC is experiencing now. Speaker, in the member Dugmore indicated that the Western Cape did nothing during COVID apparently for people, but clearly he didn't read the budget during the COVID when we had different adjustment budget. He did not read about the SMME booster fund, where we support 249 businesses to keep their doors open. They did not read the budget where we supported the Tourism Development Fund to support the tourism industry amongst the COVID period. He did not read the budget when we supported businesses with COVID business packs. The DA in the Western Cape, on the other hand, will continue fighting for the people in this province, as why the DA governed Western Cape government declared the intergovernmental dispute with the national government in line with the relevant act, taking the budget fight directly to National Treasury to secure funding from National Treasury for the public wage increase that they centrally agreed to and are enforcing on provinces. Further, this is why the Western Cape Budget Committee, and I quote from the minutes of the Western Cape Budget Committee, unanimously, and the ANC was present, Speaker, unanimously requested legal opinion from the Speaker on whether the National Council of Provinces Select Committee on Appropriations meaningfully considered the Western Cape Provincial Parliament Budget Committee's negotiating mandate, including the recommendations for amendments to the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill B33/2023, Section 76 DORA Bill during the negotiating mandate process in line with relevant legislation, including the mandating procedures of Provinces Act 52 of 2008. Speaker, I'm still quoting, if meaningful consideration did not take place, the Speaker is requested to consider instituting legal proceedings in this regard to ensure that the NCP meaningfully considers the WCPP Budget Committee's negotiating mandate, including recommendations for amendments to the DORA Bill. This request stems from unreasonably short timelines for consideration of the bill, not allowing provinces sufficient time to process and consider the bill, lack of insufficient time for public participation and inadequate consideration and integration of provided inputs by the NCOP Select Committee on Appropriations on the Western Cape Provincial Parliament Budget Committee's negotiating mandate during the negotiating mandates process. The committee thus requests the Speaker to explore whether any legal step could be pursued in response to this to ensure that the WCP Budget Committee's negotiating mandate with recommendations for amendments to the DORA bill be considered meaningfully by the NCOP, quote, close. I thus want to follow this up by saying not only was this unanimously supported by the ANC permanent member Mvimbi, but on the 1st of December 2023, when we adopted the minutes of 28 November 2023, Member Mvimbi seconded the adoption of the minutes, therefore officially and formally verifying the accuracy of the minutes. It is a document you can use in court. Further, Speaker, the ANC claims to support
members.
public servants. Speaker, the ANC claims to support public servants, but National Treasury announced that it has issued Transnet with a 47 billion rand guarantee facility effective immediately. This is more than
Honourable
39
Bartman,
times
please
what the
conclude.
Western Cape is
Your
owed.
time has expired.
The DA in the Western Cape will protect frontline services, infrastructure maintenance, and we will do what we must to continue building in the Western Cape. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Bartman. Order, members. Order, members. Honourable members, on both my right and left-hand side, or have you finished before I recognize the Minister? Minister, my apologies. I'll recognize you once the House has settled down. Honourable Minister, you may continue.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and thank you very much to all those members that participated in the debate. I would like to respond to some criticisms that were levelled at the adjustment budget. But let me just start with, it's customary that an official opposition, if they don't agree with the budget that's been tabled, will present an alternative budget. And in all the years that I've been in this legislature, I've never once seen the ANC provide an alternative budget. Probably because it's much easier to criticize from the sidelines than it is to actually think about tabling a credible budget and an alternative based on their policy platform. But given their track record at the national and their policies that got us into this trouble in the first place, that's probably why we never see an alternative budget coming from the official opposition in the Western Cape. There was mention made of the youth unemployment rate. And we agree that this is a problem, which is why we specifically chose to highlight it in the Miro and specifically why we chose to highlight it in the medium-term budget policy statement, because we believe that by recognizing where problems exist, that is how we can tackle these problems. G4J does respond directly to this. It is the largest chapter, chapter 12, deals with exactly the issues that Honourable Nkondlo was raising. And there's several ways in which we are responding. For example, we are preparing our learners for the workplace. OECD research shows that countries with the least youth disadvantage have education systems that are more integrated with the labour market. So that is what we're doing in the Western Cape. We're also partnering with the private sector to address barriers to employability. We're doing this, for example, in the textile industry and in the BPO industry. This year alone, 10,000 young people with only a matric and who are unemployed received training and are currently getting on-the-job training. By the time the year is done, 8,000 of them will be in permanent employment. These are the types of things we are doing to address youth unemployment in the Western Cape. Let me also respond to the criticism for the 1 million rand that is being provided for tourism safety. This is in comparison to the over 1 billion rand that has been provided over the medium term for safety in the crime hotspots of this province, where there's targeted boots on the ground to address some of the most violent areas in the province. So by comparison, 1 billion rand for the safety plan, 0.1% of this is what we're putting towards tourism safety. And might I add that many of the attacks on Table Mountain National Park have been locals. They're not foreign visitors, they're locals. So this funding also goes to keep locals and all visitors, whether they're local, domestic, or foreign, as safe as possible. We are expecting 25% more tourists this summer season than last year. And for the first time ever, we will breach
Order, members.
1 million inbound seats into Cape Town over our summer season, which means our tourism sector is growing. But we can't grow if we don't address some of the systemic barriers to travel. One of these, which South African tourism.
Order, members.
In
Honourable
a
Minister,
study
please take your seat.
and research.
Minister, please take your seat. Honourable members on both my left and right hand side, the minister is responding to inputs made during the debate. That's generally what happens. So now the minister has an opportunity to respond to those comments made. And it's only fair that you allow the minister to respond to the members that participated in this debate. Honourable Minister, my apologies, you may continue.
Research by South African tourism shows that one of the major deciding factors for people to not visit South Africa is because of perceptions of safety. So this directly affects the tourism economy and why we have to make sure that all visitors can enjoy their stay here, talk about what a wonderful stay they had, and return. Furthermore, for every 100 international visitors that come to the Western Cape, 2 new jobs are created and 2.1 billion rand is added to the economy. So if you care about jobs, if you care about SMMEs, and you care about women in employment, you will support tourism and the contribution it makes in our province. 215,000 people are employed because of tourism in the Western Cape. Let's support it. Let's help it to grow. Where is fiscal futures? Fiscal futures
Order,
is in its
members.
phases and will be used for the 25 budget process and will help us to develop robust fiscal planning and evidence-based scenarios to ensure fiscal predictability, sustainability, and prudent practices. I'm glad Honourable Doug Moore raised the issue of the provincial equitable share and what he called realities. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, that the Western Cape has the 3rd largest population in South Africa, the 3rd largest population. But we only get the 5th largest budget. And the reality is that we face that pressure now. We don't face that pressure at some undetermined time in the future. To show how skewed it is, Mr. Speaker, and maybe the honourable members can take the point here, how skewed it is. Limpopo province has 1 million less people than the Western Cape. Limpopo has 1 million less people, but Limpopo gets 6.5 billion rand more than the Western Cape does. 6.5 billion rand more for 1 million less people.
Order. Honourable members, Minister, please take your seat.
Point about finding
Honourable
new
Minister,
markets.
please take your seat. Honourable members, you are completely drowning out the minister. Yeah, this is on both sides of the house. Honourable Minister, my apologies for the disrespect.
Thank you,
You may
Mr.
continue.
Speaker. I'm also glad that the leader of the opposition made the point about finding new markets for South Africa's agricultural products. But there's no point in doing this if we can't get them to market because the rail and the ports have collapsed. So what is the answer there? What is the ANC doing, government doing to rectify the logistics crisis in South Africa? To Honourable de Villiers, whose main input was that we should do away with the provincial sphere. I found that rather curious, considering that his party contested for government in all 9 provinces. So we stand to see whether they'll stand again if they don't agree with the provincial sphere at all. On the informal economy, we have a program called the SMME Booster Fund, which has assisted to upgrade and develop trading sites for informal traders in Langeberg, Mossel Bay, and Oudtshoorn municipalities. In the current iteration, support will be provided to key stakeholders that provide support to budding entrepreneurs in the Cape Flats and in townships, namely R-Labs, the Bicycling Empowerment Network, and the Silula Foundation. It also assists municipalities, which provide support to informal enterprises. So finally, Speaker, I'd just like to thank the colleagues in this House from across the political divide who did support this difficult budget and our efforts to provide stability, protection, and hope. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Honourable Members. That concludes the debate on the consideration of the principle of the bill. Are there any objections to the approval of the principle of the bill? Is there an objection? There is an objection, and I therefore put the question to the House that those in favour of the bill being adopted, the principle of the bill being adopted, please say yes. Those not in favour of the principle of the bill being adopted, please say no. I think the ayes have it, and the question before the House is therefore approved. I now recognise the Secretary to read the second order of the day. Oh, my apologies. The Secretary will first read the bill.
Western Cape Adjustments Appropriation Bill.
Thank you very much, Honourable Members. The House will now deal with the votes separately. Honourable Secretary, the second order of the day.
Consideration of the report of the Standing Committee on Health and Wellness on the National Health Insurance Bill, D11B 2021.
Thank you very much. The Honourable Members, the House received the report of the Standing Committee on Health and Wellness on the National Insurance Bill, conferring authority on the Western Cape delegation in the NCOP to not support this bill. This mandate has been sent to the NCOP. I will now afford parties an opportunity to make a declaration if they so wish. I recognise the ANC. Honourable Van Vogel, my apologies. Can I just ask that you switch on your microphone for the record? Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I rise on behalf of the ANC to reiterate our unwavering support for the National Health Insurance Bill. The passing of this bill will be a significant step towards achieving equitable access to quality healthcare for all citizens, especially the over 50 million South Africans that use the public health sector. The NHI will address the existing disparities in our healthcare system, as well as barriers to access, thereby ensuring that no one is left behind when it comes to receiving quality medical care. Speaker, individuals like Auntie Sarah in the rural outskirts of this province, in the Overberg, Central Karoo, West Coast, and other rural communities will, for the first time, be guaranteed equitable and quality healthcare right at their doorsteps. The days of patients sleeping on hospital floors will be a thing of the past. The ANC government is committed to prioritize the health and well-being of all citizens, regardless of one's socioeconomic background. Speaker, we are satisfied that the bill has undergone all the necessary steps and there was widespread consultation, enough public hearings to capture the views of the people across the nation. Having attended all public hearings in our province, I can confidently say that the resounding majority of the people in the province are in full support of the passing of the NHI bill. Speaker, the recommendation of the Standing Committee on Health and Wellness for the Western Cape delegation in the NCOP not to support the NHI is not a true reflection of the public views. It is simply the DA abusing its majority in legislature to push through the mandate of their handlers. The people of the Western Cape wants the NHI bill to be passed, and the ANC support the passing of this bill. The DA has employed every trick in the book to prevent the NHI bill from passing. First, by forcing an extension of public hearings in the province, and more recently by threatening a fight in the Constitutional Court to halt the NHI from progressing beyond Parliament. The NHI will be passed into law, and the DA must accept the will of the people, including the will of the people in the Western Cape. The ANC support this bill. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Van Vogel. I recognize the ACDP.
Thank you, Speaker. On behalf of the ACDP, the National Health Insurance is disastrous in its current form. Let me just say what Professor Alex van der Heever said of Wits University. He says the National Health Insurance, if implemented as outlined in the NHI bill, will be dysfunctional and 1,000 years to implement due to the government being incompetent. Let me also say what business leaders are saying, organized business saying. Groups have said that they will challenge the bill in court if passed in this current form, as it is fundamentally unworkable and pushed through without proper deliberation. The ACDP believes that this is just another entity to loot and steal, so we cannot support it. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Christians. I recognize honourable members. Honourable Van Vogel, you had an opportunity and everyone listened while you had your opportunity. While the Honourable Christians was making his declaration, you were constantly engaging him and trying to drown him out. I now recognize the EFF.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the National Health Insurance Bill is a disaster by nature. It makes no sense how it will be implemented in an already collapsed public healthcare sector. This bill falls short of adequately addressing how it will deal with the issues of inequality in the health sector and how it will actually implement this universal healthcare coverage. For these reasons, the EFF rejects this bill. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Kasim. I recognize the Freedom Front Plus.
Speaker, the Freedom Front Plus rejects adoption of the National Health Insurance Bill. The ANC has over the years systematically, completely destroyed and bankrupted all SOEs, including ESCOM, SAA, Denel, through their incompetent ministers and officials. Ministers, without damaging this country further, we reject this bill.
Thank you very much, Honourable Marais. I recognize Good.
We don't support this bill, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable de Villiers. I recognize Al-Jamar.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Honourable
All the members,
Speaker,
there's a member on the virtual platform.
Honourable Speaker, South Africa supports this NHI bill. The Western Cape supports this NHI bill. The Al-Jamar Party supports this NHI bill. And this bill will pass. We support the bill in full. Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you very much. I recognize the Democratic Alliance.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the NHI bill would allow the state to take control over virtually all healthcare in South Africa. Under NHI, private healthcare would be all but outlawed, and medical procedures would be funded by a massive central tax-funded pool of money. While the goal of universal healthcare is a noble one, this particular bill will have dire economic consequences for the Western Cape and South Africa. With a mounting debt crisis, a stagnant economy, and an energy crisis that makes real the threat of total economic collapse, South Africa cannot meet the financial obligations requirements of this bill. The passage of the NHI would not only catastrophically exacerbate this, but would also bring millions of patients in an already overstretched public healthcare system, which in other provinces of this country currently cannot accommodate the existing load of service delivery requirements, while simultaneously demanding hundreds of billions of rand more from an overstretched and shrinking tax base. National Treasury, Speaker, has thus far not disclosed how this system of state-funded healthcare will be funded with any degree of viability. These concerns were echoed by hundreds of residents who made written and oral submissions on the bill. It included informed and well-motivated submissions by members of the public, NGOs, and corporate South Africa. Deep concerns were expressed about the sweeping powers over health which would be granted to the national minister by the bill, the massive potential for corruption engendered by the NHI system, as well as the eradication of private medical sector and patient choice over where to receive treatment. Speaker, to pass this bill would lead to the total collapse of both the healthcare sector and the greater economy of South Africa. The Western Cape Standing Committee on Health and Wellness's ratification of the rejection of this bill is fully supported. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Pretorius. Honourable members, I have to announce that there are currently 32 honourable members present and entitled to vote, and the House is therefore quorate. The question put before the House that the report of the Standing Committee on Health and Wellness on the National Health Insurance Bill conferring authority on the Western Cape delegation in the NCOP not to support this bill be ratified and adopted. Are there any objections? There is an objection, and therefore I put the question that those in favour of the report being ratified and adopted, please say aye. Those not in favour of the report being ratified and adopted, please say no. I think the ayes have it, and therefore the question is approved. The report of the Standing Committee on Health and Wellness on the National Insurance Bill has therefore been adopted. The Secretary will read the third order of the day.
Consideration of the report of the Standing Committee on Mobility on the National Land Transport Amendment Bill B7 2016 NCOP.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, the House received the report of the Standing Committee on Mobility on the National Land Transport Amendment Bill, conferring authority on the Western Cape delegation in the NCOP not to support this bill. This mandate has been sent to the NCOP. I will now afford parties an opportunity to make a declaration if they so wish, and I recognise the ANC.
Honourable Speaker, the ANC support the amendment to the National Land Transport Amendment Bill. Honourable Speaker, I stand before you today to address a matter of great significance, the National Land Transport Amendment Bill. This crucial piece of legislation designed to amend the National Land Transport Act of 2009 has been returned to the National Assembly for consideration, bearing the weight of the President's reservation regarding its constitutionality. The primary objective of this bill are multifaceted, aiming to enhance and modernize the National Land Transport Act of 2009. Its proposed amendments include the insertion and modification of certain definitions addressing the imperative need for non-motorized and accessible transport and aligning the act with the latest development in the transport sector. The bill expands the powers of the minister to make regulation and introduce safety measures. In a world that is ever evolving, the ability to adapt and regulate is paramount to ensuring the safety and well-being of our citizens, as well as the efficiency of our transportation system. The prescription of criteria and requirements for municipality to enter into contract for public transport services is another commendable aspect of this bill. This ensures that municipalities adhere to standardized guidelines, promoting transparency and accountability in providing public transport services. The National Land Transport Amendment Bill seeks to harmonize and synchronize various transport-related legislation, resolving issues that have emerged since the implementation of the Act. It is a testament to our commitment to progress, efficiency, and the overall well-being of our citizens. In conclusion, let us approach this deliberation with a sense of duty to the people we represent and the nation we serve. The National Land Transport Amendment Bill, with its noble objective, provides us with an opportunity to enhance our transportation system, promote safety, and foster regional empowerment. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mvimbi. I recognize the EFF.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, this bill remains hollow and inadequate. It fails to regulate the e-hailing transport services in the country, thereby creating room for chaos between Uber, Bolt drivers, and the minibus taxi industry. Speaker, it fails to put in place tight measures to control the proliferation of heavy trucks on the roads as a result of the collapse of the railway system in the country. It fails to create an enabling environment for the progressive inclusion of taxis in all aspects of transportation, and it creates a perception of a competition between the taxis and the bus rapid transit. For these reasons, the EFF rejects this bill. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kasim. I recognize Good.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. We don't support the bill.
Thank you very much, Honorable de Villiers. I recognize the ACDP.
No declaration, Speaker.
Very much. I recognize the Freedom Front Plus.
No declaration, Speaker.
Thank you very much. I recognize the Al-Jama.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker Al-Jama, we support this bill.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I recognize the DA.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the National Land Transport Act was enacted in 2009, and largely it is in line with the transport strategy of the ANC at the time, and also to create a system to accommodate the BRT bus systems, as well as certain mechanisms that need to be put in place for the 2010 FIFA World Cup tournament in the country. Now, Chairperson, that subsequent concerns arise as a result of that particular act, and these amendments are purely of technical nature. One of the things that we have of concern, Chairperson, is there is absolutely little clarity in terms of the separation of powers between the three spheres of government, and these were expressed during the portfolio stages in the National Assembly, as well as through the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, as well as the City of Cape Town. So we are of the view that where municipalities across borders are not able to contract with transport operators, that the competent province like the Western Cape Provincial Parliament and Executive should be able to intervene and assist municipalities in negotiating these contracts. This particular act to confer that powers to the national minister, which we don't agree with. So we submitted a number of recommendations and proposals as to how we could remedy the situation and how we could strengthen the legislation. All of these recommendations were rejected by the NCOP. I then subsequently wrote to the chairperson of the Standing Committee of the NCOP expressing my disgust and my unhappiness after expending a lot of time with public participation and also making the effort of coming up with meaningful suggestions as to how we could strengthen the legislation. The NCOP simply just did not even respond to that in terms of the recommendations. My letter was subsequently tabled at the NCOP meeting where the mandate of the ERT was discussed, and the only response I received, we acknowledge the concerns raised in your letter. Nothing, no explanation as to why our recommendations were not even
Honorable
considered.
America, please conclude.
And in the context of that, Chairperson, we do not support the National Land Transport Amendment Bill.
Thank you very much, Honourable America. Honourable members, I have to announce that there are currently 33 honourable members present and entitled to vote, and the House is therefore quorate. The question put before the House is that the report of the Standing Committee on Mobility on the National Land Transport Amendment Bill conferring authority on the Western Cape delegation in the NCOP not to support this bill be ratified and adopted. Are there any objections? There is an objection, and therefore I put the question that all those in favor of the report being ratified and adopted, please say aye. That those not in favor of the report being ratified and adopted, please say no. I think the ayes have it, and the question is therefore approved. The report of the Standing Committee on Mobility on the National Land Transport Amendment Bill has therefore been adopted. The Secretary will now read the fourth order of the day.
Consideration of the report of the Standing Committee on Mobility on the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill, B7D 2020, NCOP.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, the House received the report of the Standing Committee on Mobility on the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill, conferring authority on the Western Cape delegation in the NCOP to support this bill. This mandate has been sent to the NCOP. I will now afford parties an opportunity to make a declaration if they so wish, and I recognize the ANC.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Today, I stand before you to address the critical implications and transformative potential embedded with the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill. Honorable Speaker, the ANC states clearly that it supports the amendment to this bill. This legislative proposal is a pivotal step towards the comprehensive realization of the strategic interventions articulated in the road safety strategy. It is our duty as responsible lawmakers and representatives to ensure its proper implementation for the betterment of our nation's road infrastructure and safety protocols. The bill endeavors to address the practical challenges ingrained in the road traffic management system. This system, designed to uphold norms and standards, plays a pivotal role in enabling the effective performance of subnational spheres of government and their executive authorities. The bill is aimed at enhancing the overall efficiency and accountability within our land transport framework. One of its primary functions is to provide a robust mechanism for the registration and licensing of motor vehicles by empowering an MEC or provincial minister, in our case, to oversee these processes. It further aims to regulate driving school instructor registration and grading, promoting discipline and professionalism in the industry by prohibiting unregistered and ungraded schools and instructors. The bill endeavors to make misconduct and criminal process more efficient, effective, and properly enforced by empowering an MEC or a minister, in our case, to declare and void all documents purporting to be driving licenses. The legislation takes a bold stance against fraudulent activities within the licensing system. The minister's authority to appoint an inspectorate of driving license testing centers serves as a crucial step towards enhancing the integrity of the licensing process. In conclusion, the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill is a testament to our unwavering commitment to fostering a secure and efficient transportation network for all citizens. Let us collectively rally behind this legislation, recognizing its potential to reshape our nation's road for the betterment of all. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Mvigbe. I recognize the EFF.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the Economic Freedom Fighters supports the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill. This bill addresses some of the technical and administrative issues which should have been addressed a long time ago. Some of these technical and administrative issues include management of national road traffic personnel, enforcement processes, and the regulation of entities that are tasked with the responsibility of ensuring that the process of assessing vehicle roadworthiness is in line with efficient standards. Speaker, as the EFF, we believe that the amendments introduced by this bill will improve efficiency in the national road traffic management. We also hold a view that alcohol for both drivers and pedestrians is a huge problem on our roads. Lastly, we need a fully functioning railway line system Heavy goods should also be transported through the railway line and not in our roads. Heavy duty trucks on our roads are responsible for the many tragic accidents we see in our national roads on a daily basis. And we cannot continue like this. Having said that, the EFF supports this bill, Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Kasim. I recognize Good. Honourable de Villiers.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. No declaration.
Thank you very much. I recognize the ACDP.
No declaration, Speaker.
Thank you very much. I recognize the Freedom Front Plus.
No declaration.
Thank you, Honourable Mre. I recognize Al Jamaa.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker Al Jamaa, we support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize the DA.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the current legislation was in need of an update in order to improve the working conditions of our licensed examiners, grading of our training facilities, registering a group involved with the microdot technology and those who manufacture number plates, and also to outlaw negligent issuance of learner licenses and driver's licenses, and also to register and grade driving school instructors and driving schools, and potentially lower the legal blood alcohol limit for drivers. Speaker, this legislation wish to align in a better way the practical aspects of administering and enforcing traffic laws on the road, and several other proposed amendments and definitions that is necessary to expand the existing laws that deals with driver behavior in our roads and roadworthiness of licenses. But something that was omitted due to our agitation in the National Assembly is the removal of the issuance of temporary driver's licenses that the ANC wanted to have contained in the legislation. And if these proposed changes, Chairperson, is in a good way, it will promote driver safety and safer vehicles on the road. And the DA and we propose that we support this amendment legislation. And thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable America. Honourable members, I have to announce that there are currently 35 honourable members present and entitled to vote, and the House is therefore quorate. The question put before the House is that the report of the Standing Committee on Mobility on the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill, conferring authority on the Western Cape delegation in the NCOP to support this bill, be ratified and adopted. Are there any objections? No objections. Agreed to. The report of the Standing Committee on Mobility on the National Road Traffic Amendment Bill has therefore been adopted. The Secretary will read the fifth order of the day.
Consideration of report of the Budget Committee on the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill B33, 2023 NCOP.
Thank you very much, honourable members. The House received the report of the Budget Committee on the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, conferring authority on the Western Cape delegation in the NCOP not to support this bill. This mandate has been sent to the NCOP. I will now afford parties an opportunity to make a declaration if they so wish, and I recognize the ANC.
Thank you, Speaker. The ANC supports the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, given that the International Monetary Fund forecast global growth to slow down from 3.5% in 2022 to 3% this year and dropping below 3% in 2024. Low commodity prices, the risk of US interest rates remaining higher for longer, as well as a weaker growth outlook for China, which are South Africa's largest trading partners. The growth prospects of our national and provincial economies look dim. As a result, our national public finances remain extremely tight. As Minister Kodongwana indicated in his medium-term budget policy statement, the main budget deficit has increased by 54.7 billion compared with the 2023 budget estimates. Lower corporate tax income has led to lower revenue performance, even though personal income tax collection has been higher than expected. Coupled with this is the higher projected debt service cost, and as a consequence, the main budget deficit in this fiscal year has envisaged a deficit of 4.9% of GDP compared to previous estimates of 4%. As a result, given this bleak economic outlook and weakening fiscal situation, the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill seeks to make do with what we have and act within the confines of these fiscal and economic constraints. In the face of these economic and fiscal challenges, government's role remains ever important, especially for the weakest of our society, who will remain the most affected by these hard times and who are most dependent on the state to survive. The Division of Revenue once again allows for the equitable allocation of funds to provinces and municipalities. As indicated, national government has proposed that over the next 3 years, it will be allocating 48% of available non-interest spending to national departments, just over 42% to provinces, and just under 10% to local government. While the ANC continues to recognize that provincial and local government are under pressure to meet infrastructure demands, we also remain cognizant that financially stable municipalities remain the bedrock for economic and social development. We are aware that conditional grants have been adversely affected, yet the ANC also believes that the amendments introduced to some of these grants will bring about the necessary effectiveness and efficiency needed during these times of fiscal constraint. It is for these reasons that the ANC supported the bill. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Nkondlo. I recognize the EFF.
Speaker, the EFF rejects this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize Good.
No declaration, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable de Villiers. I recognize the ACDP.
Thank you, Speaker. The ACDP does not support the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill because of the corruption and because of the incompetence of the ANC. We cannot support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Christians. I recognize the Freedom Front Plus.
Freedom Front Plus cannot support this bill because it would be an insult to the people of the Western Cape if anybody accepts this bill in its present form, looking at the cuts made in the budget and then blaming the Western Cape government for not delivering service delivery when they cut budgets. This is a protest vote.
Thank you very much, Honourable Murray. I recognize Al Jamaa.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, Al Jamaa supports this bill. And through this bill, the ANC will win the election next year in the Western Cape and will rule the Western Cape again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I recognize the Democratic Alliance.
Speaker, it's quite interesting when the permanent delegate of the ANC on the Budget Committee doesn't actually move the declaration on the budget adjustment bill. But the Division of Revenue Amendment B33 2023 allocates 1.7 billion rand to the Western Cape province for public wages, but they owe us more than 1.1 billion rand national government in terms of the shortfall for public wages. And Speaker, I want to make this very clear. If someone owes you 10 rand and they only give you 5 rand, you must accept your 5 rand and you must still fight for the other 5 rand. Because what the ANC doesn't want to tell people, it's not their money. It is not national government and national treasury and the ANC's money. It's the people's money that must be given back to the people. Further, in this bill cuts 642 million rand collectively from conditional grants in the province. In education infrastructure grant, 156 million rand is being cut. Early childhood development grant, 14 million rand is being cut. District health programs grant, 66 million rand is being cut. Health facility revitalization grant, 54 million rand is being cut. Provincial roads maintenance grant, 51 million rand is being cut. Human settlements development, 214 million rand is being cut. Informal settlements upgrading partnership grant, 57 million rand is being cut. And I can go on, Speaker. Speaker, this amounts to a net increase of 1 billion rand and is in effect a budget cut on the province. In substance, the committee moved to object the bill with only the ANC supporting the bill. In procedure, the committee unanimously agreed to request the legal opinion from the Speaker whether the NCOP meaningfully considered the committee's negotiating mandate, including the recommendation for amendment to the Division of Revenue, because the NCOP simply ignored our respective recommendations. And we thank the permanent member, the delegate member Mvimbi from the ANC, for supporting this recommendation and for moving to support the minutes on this matter. Further, I welcome National Treasury's written commitment to devolution of powers for provinces in their reply to the Western Cape, and welcome National Treasury to the Western Cape WhatsApp group in this regard. We further welcome the inputs by the Western Cape Children's Commissioner's Office as part of the public participation, as we always encourage public participation. The DA in the Western Cape supports the ratification of this report to object to the Division of Revenue Adjustment Bill. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Bartman.
Honourable Speaker.
Honourable Bartman, thank you very much. Honourable Mvimbi, is that a point of order?
Honourable Speaker, just to correct the disingenuity that has been expressed, I supported.
Honourable Mvimbi, that's not a point of order. Honourable Mvimbi,
come here and distort.
Honourable Mvimbi, please take your seat. Honourable Mvimbi, please take your seat for the third time. Honourable members, that is not a point of order. Honourable members, I have to announce that there are currently 34 honourable members present and entitled to vote, and the House is therefore quorate. The question put before the House, that the report of the Budget Committee on the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill conferring authority on the Western Cape delegation in the NCOP not to support the bill be ratified and adopted. Are there any objections? There is an objection, and therefore the question put, that those in favour of the report being ratified and adopted, please say aye. Those not in favour of the report being ratified and adopted, please say no. I think the ayes have it, and therefore the question is approved. The report of the Budget Committee on the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill has therefore been adopted. Honourable members, that concludes the business for the day. The Secretary will now end the meeting and all members will be exited from the sitting. The House is adjourned.